Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the, May Washington County Quorum Court meeting to order. Hard to believe we're already to this point in the year. I've asked Justice Wilson to do the honor of prayer and pledge this evening. Justice Wilson, if you'll cue your mic.
Heavenly Father, we thank you that tonight we could assemble as free citizens in a free country, and we ask that you might bless the deliberations and guide us this evening as we do the business of the county here. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to do so. We thank you also, Lord, that at this time in our county we can have a 9/11 exhibit in which we can look back to an important time in our country's history. And we thank you, Lord, that it reminds us of how we need to rely on you. It also reminds us of people who have dedicated their lives to the safety of individuals in every community in our land. We thank you, Lord, for their service. We thank you, Lord, for their commitment. And Lord, we also want to say thank you that we approach a time on the calendar with Memorial Day approaching and calendar events like D-Day and Flag Day and Independence Day, which will soon come up. We thank you, Lord, that in our country we have those times set aside, and it's always appropriate to look to our history that you've guided so graciously, and you've taken care of things, Lord, and provided when we've needed you the most. And I pray, Lord, we would always understand and appreciate how you have taken care of things. And I pray, Lord, we would always look to those who have stepped forward when you've called upon them to do so. I pray, Lord, that you would help us to look to you with appreciation, and pray that as a people we would always bow before you in unity, and pray that we would look to you for guidance. Pray we would do that in times of need, but also in times when we just need you for guidance, and that we would do that every day. I pray we'd do that as a community and as a county and as a country. And I pray, Lord, we would trust you every step of the way this very evening. For it's in Christ's name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Justice Wilson. With that, we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. There are a couple items that we need to handle this evening. I had emailed out earlier to you justices about I would like for you guys to help me add a discussion item to the agenda with regard to the Parker Branch Bridge. And if somebody would make that motion, I'd appreciate that. I have a motion to add discussion item by Justice Lemming, second by Justice Ricker. All those in favor? Those opposed? The agenda has been amended. We'll make that new item at the end of, I want to put it at the end of the agenda before the committee reports. I don't see.
Be 13, be 14.
Correct. Yes, I'm sorry. 14. It'll be new item 14. Secondly, you should have a hard copy in front of you of item number 23-0-080. This is an item that Councilor Lester wants us to take up this evening. It addresses our organizational ordinance that sets our meetings, and it adds an Article 4, and this will specifically address the issue we have coming up in a couple weeks where we'll the courthouse will be closed for Memorial Day on the 29th, and that is also a meeting day for our county services meeting, and we need to move that meeting to Tuesday the 30th. And you can see this ordinance, what it would do now moving forward into the future. If the courthouse is closed due to a holiday, a meeting on that day will automatically roll to that next day. And so we thought at this time we would just like to take this up, gives the public a little bit more planning to know that if the courthouse is closed, we'll automatically do that. We won't take the meetings up onesies and twosies. There still might be situations like we had last month where we would need to move certain meetings for voting and things like that. With that, do I have a motion? Justice Ricker?
Have a motion to place item 23-0-080 on the agenda at item 15.
Item 15, second by Justice Lyons. All those in favor? Those opposed? With that, the item has added to the agenda. Any further additions or discussion on the agenda with that? If not, I'll take up a motion to pass as amended. Motion to. Yeah, that's an ordinance that's on our agenda this evening. If you'll flip over to the back, there's a section that Director Burchett has decided is no longer needed in that. So we were just handed that out as a representation to amend it. So with that, I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended by Justice Lyons, second by Justice Dean. All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. With that, we'll move in to the meeting. Do I have any preliminary motions?
Yes, sir.
Justice Dean, cue your mic.
I move to read all ordinances and resolutions by title only.
I have a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions by title only by Justice Dean, second by Justice Lyons. All those in favor? Those opposed? We will read all ordinances and resolutions by title only. With that, we're going to move into our citizens' comment period. Our citizens' comments are established by county ordinance. We have a total of 15 minutes limited to each, 3 minutes per person. With that, come forward, state your name and where you live. Mr. Mayfield, will you cue that mic for me? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Judge. Mac Mayfield, 980 Rocky Lane, Fayetteville. Attended the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, a meeting on pretrial services today, and Sheriff Cantrell introduced his recidivism reduction team and wanted to applaud him for that and for thinking proactively about how we lessen the human burden at the jail and the physical burden, get people out and have them prepared to come back into society. So I think that's a great move. Would also like to urge that the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee move a little faster. We've talked about pretrial services for a long time. We've had our judicial assessment from the National States Court System since September of 2020. And the county paid good money for that. It makes a lot of sense. If we had pursued some of those programs with vigor, we would be either seeing the results or knowing that they weren't worth doing. But it's been dormant for a long time. I would like to see that picked up and moved forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Public comments.
Chair's bouncy. My name's Lou Reed Sharp. I live at 1739 Steele in Tawnytown, Arkansas. And I just wanted to come up and thank everybody and thank all of the JPs and the staff for working together to bring the Tunnels to Towers exhibit to Northwest Arkansas. And I want to especially thank JP First Stafford for reaching out to the judge and his staff and inviting them. And I'll have you know, the judge, the Director Ben of Veteran Services, and Director of Communications Tad kind of went above and beyond the call of duty and showed up at our Democratic meeting to share their stories about 9/11 and honor our heroes. And it was just really, really nice and refreshing for us all to remember back how we pulled together on 9/11. And so much of what Quorum Court deals with are nonpartisan issues. You know, it's potholes, it's gravel roads, it's dirt mines, and we all want the same thing, which is safe families, safe environment. And anyway, I just want to appreciate it. I know all the JPs had voted for it 15-0, and I don't know when the last time was that has occurred. So thank you very much. Very, very well done.
Thank you. Public comments.
My name is Joshua Hale. I live at 15564 Prairie View Road. I've sent multiple emails and made multiple calls regarding the possible paving of my county road without response from the road department. This was discussed in the planning board meeting in March related to the cup for the Grand at Willow Springs, which you'll be hearing about later tonight. The developer of this large-scale development stated he has been in talks with the county road department to help pay to pave this road. However, the road department would not respond to any questions I had regarding this. I even submitted an FOIA to try to get details, and they did not provide any info related to the paving of my road as requested. So one, either they're not obeying the law and responding to the FOIA appropriately, or they're conducting all business in person, so there is no paper trail. Either way, this is problematic. It seems to be a common complaint from residents at a lot of quorum court meetings, the failure to respond to FOIAs appropriately. From my understanding, this road was not on the list to be paved at the beginning of the year, and I was told in order to request a road to be paved, if it's not already on the list, it required all residents on the road to agree to the paving. I do not wish for my county road to be paved. I believe this makes it less safe by increasing speeds and increased traffic because people will use this as a cut-through road. The road department should not be avoiding answering questions from citizens regarding their own road. I think the county could better spend taxpayer money to pave a road or fix a bridge that benefits a greater number of citizens than to pave my sparsely populated road just to benefit this business. One other item I would like to mention before we have the discussion later regarding item number 8, the appeal of the Grand at Willow Springs conditional use permit. The landowner developer of this large-scale development and his family have told my wife and I and other neighbors that one of the reasons they are confident that this will get passed and that there is nothing we can do about it is because the landowner developer's uncle, Robert Dennis, is on the quorum court. This to me seems inappropriate and would seem to be a strong conflict of interest. I would therefore ask that Mr. Dennis recuse from the discussion and voting on the appeal heard tonight and the possible approval of this CUP and large-scale development. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the agenda. The minutes from the regular quorum court meeting last month are in your packet. Without any corrections, those will stand as approved. Are there any corrections or amendments to the minutes? Okay. Next item is the county judge's report. We have a very busy county right now. It seems like every day is quite the grand adventure. First, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you very much to the Goin' Showin' 4-H Club tonight, who offered us the treats and refreshments before the meeting. I can never be too. Thank you so much to those young individuals. I can never be surprised by the hospitality of our county and its citizens, and so I really appreciate that. And it sets us off, I think, on a good foot every time we get somebody to host us like that. Next, the disposal report is in your packet. There were no disposal items for last month, so that should be easy. Our 9/11 mobile exhibit is here. It's open and it's here. We had our grand opening this morning. It was a great event. I just want to once again thank everyone around the county that's made this absolutely possible. And it's not just here in our county, it's around the region. Director Dykes and his Veteran Services staff has been absolutely tremendous in making this dream come to reality. I really want to thank all of our sponsors who made this possible for us. As all you know, when we started out on this venture, we knew we needed help to get this here and defray the costs. I want to just thank our sponsors individually, if I could. Our gold sponsors were Cox Communication, Nabholz Construction, Smith Two-Way Radio, and the Washington County Rural Fire Association. Our platinum sponsors were the Whitaker Family Foundation, the Elks Lodge number 1987 of Fayetteville and Springdale, Maynard Inc., Tesseract Fabrication LLC, the Pig Trail Harley Davidson, and Coho B&B donated an Airbnb in Fayetteville that has been absolutely tremendous for the accommodations for the firefighters that are here right now. For this, we had an awesome escort yesterday from the state line of Missouri down here to Fayetteville. Though that logistically is a lot more involved than probably I ever appreciated, and so we had so many law enforcement agencies that helped us with that. I want to thank the Arkansas State Police, the Benton County Sheriff's Department, the Bella Vista Police Department, the Bentonville Police Department, Rogers Police Department, Springdale Police Department, Fayetteville Police Department, Washington County Sheriff's Department. There were a lot of helping hands in that, and I apologize if I missed anyone in that. It was an awesome thing to see, and awesome thing to see our community come together. It was awesome to see that this morning, and so I appreciate all the justices and the elected officials who had the chance to make it out this morning. If you didn't have the chance to make it out, please come. and see the exhibit while it's here this weekend. I think it's absolutely breathtaking. And of course, to be able to interact with retired firemen who were there that day is just a whole different kind of fellowship and a whole different experience to get to experience that day. And so I really, really appreciate that. Chief Johnson has been very, very busy working with our buildings and grounds on an assortment of projects. I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of those. We've started the reconstruction of our first floor after settling that insurance claim. We're trying to patch that back together and put that work is ongoing right now. So if you go down there, please pardon our mess as we update that area and make some changes there and get that put back together. I'm really, really happy to say that we have finally settled our roofing claim that has been multiple years old. And so we think the county has come out in a good spot on that. We're very, very excited to get to work on that. And so, Chief Johnson, the hard work he thought was getting the insurance claim settled. No, the hard work's going to come now as we work to repair our buildings and get them back up into tip-top condition. We had a consultant that was helping us through that claims process. That consultant has agreed to help us now to prioritize and triage what projects we move to and how we move through the list of the buildings. We have a lot of work to do, and so be watching that as a county. We'll come through that. I think we are cautiously optimistic and have declared victory on our window leaking problem here at the courthouse, and that's another tremendous accomplishment that I want to thank Chief Johnson for. That's been years in the making. The next step to that is we do still have a little bit of window leaking around that we think's just the caulk being worn out on this building, and so Chief Johnson has taken bids, and we might be coming to you guys very shortly to what we want to do is clean, re-caulk, and seal this building. And what that'll do is it might be at some expense, but it should set us up to have another 20, 25 years of great service out of this building. And of course, this is one of the county's highest assets. I've also always kind of compared it to, this is Mom's station wagon. This is what gets us to where we need to go as a county, and it's a great utility for us, so be on the lookout for that. Our emergency operations center construction's going full steam. We opened RFQs for that last Friday. I'm proud to say that we had 8 strong responses to that RFQ, and so now we work through the proposals and work through who best to reward that work to. But, we hear that the construction industry here is very busy, and that is very true, but we're glad to get the responses that we have out of that. We have finalized our road tour date. As many of you know, we sent out a poll to each of you. It will be June the 28th. June the 28th. And so what we did was we tried to pick the best day that accommodated the most of you. And so we apologize if that day didn't work out. That is going to be an all-day endeavor, so please plan on that. We want to dress appropriately for what is probably going to be a pretty warm day, pretty warm and hopefully sunny day. And so just be looking forward to that. We're coordinating with Ozark Regional Transit to accommodate our logistics with that. They're going to offer us a bus, and so we are working on that list of the itinerary, if you will, of where we will go. We do not have that finalized. Some of that will be up in the air as we move through our road projects, so where we're at in the status of those to finally determine where we want to take you guys and show what we want to show you. So we'll be working on that. Just keep a lookout for that, and we'll get that to you as soon as we think it's possible. You might have noticed some changes if you came in the public door this evening. One of my most critical duties as Washington County Judge is to ensure the security of our buildings in the concert with our sheriff's deputies. And so our x-ray machine has, I think, decided to retire unbeknownst to us this week. And so the hard part of that is that puts an undue burden on our deputies. I have authorized the sheriff's deputies who provide our security to, in the interim, in the short term, prohibit bags and large personal carry items into the building just because of a safety concern. We are currently taking quotes on those types of machines, and we will bring those to you for your consideration as soon as we can. It gave us a wonderful opportunity to discuss and reevaluate some of our security protocols. But in those discussions, we have very much firmed up that the x-ray machine is a critical piece of machinery to keep us safe in this building and, of course, accommodate the operations of the courts. Finally, tonight on our county judge's report, we have a Board of Equalization member that needs to be reappointed. Ms. Mildred Runkle currently serves on our Board of Equalization, and she is asked to be reappointed. We're great to have her service. I have a motion to approve her by Justice Pond, second by Justice Dean. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. With that, Ms. Runkle will continue her service to the county, and we surely appreciate that. Okay. With that, I think we're into the new business of our agenda. First up will be a CUP appeal for the Grand at Willow Springs. Let us walk through this process one more time. I think we're probably getting pretty familiar with these, but we're going to hear from our planning department and any other outside agencies that wish to comment on this project. And then we'll hear from the applicant themselves. And then finally, we'll wrap up with public comments for or against the project. With that, Director Ada, would you like to introduce this project?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm waiting on Ms. Myra to fire up the presentation. It makes it easier. Sam, out of planning, Fayetteville residents. Alrighty. The grant at Willow Springs conditional use permit. This project was approved on the 30th of March, 2023. We had 2 absentees of the planning board members, so it was voted it was approved, voted by 5 members present. 5 basically voted in favor, none of them voted against. So it was unanimous from whoever attended. Back before Christmas time, the applicant, Mr. Derek Thibodeau, came by the office, the planning office, and asked questions about how to apply for a CUP, what's the process, and how the LSD project is going to be. So we explained everything to him. We offered him all the application forms, and we told him whenever you're ready, just let us know. And end of January 2023. We received emails from the neighbors, Mr. Here specifically, and he said one of our neighbors is he's preparing to do a wedding venue, and it's going to be a done deal, and he already talked to everyone, and we need to know if this is going to go through the process. So just to make sure the applicant and the property owner knows, I send out this email telling him that that's our ordinance. If anything needs to be done, that it's not agricultural use or residential, it has to go through the CUP process, and if it's larger than 1 acre, it has to be an LSD. Mr. Eric Walker called us, and he came to the office, and he said he had an appointment, and we explained everything to him, and then sometimes in February, I believe, they applied for the CUP and the LSD at the same time. What you're looking at, next please, is the vicinity map where it's located within the county, next please, and that's basically a zoom into the site map, next please, and this is the neighbor notification map. Based on our ordinance, we need to notify 300 feet within the perimeter of the property that's going to go into the project, and the orange line is the buffer, the 300 feet out. The pink is the project itself, where the site is going to be, and everything in blue is the neighbors that have been notified. I know, I like the colors too. So this is the CUP summary basically. It's a proposed venue close to Prairie Grove. It's going to have at least, proposed anticipated 1 event per week, maximum of 120 parking spaces is going to be available with about maybe 5, I believe, ADA parking closer to the chapel to make it easier. The site is about 5,500 square feet, wedding chapel, and 11,500 square feet for the reception hall. It's going to have the parking space, retention pond, and landscaping around that building. As I said, the ordinance is down there, we notify 300 feet within the neighbors. So we received 2 neighbors in opposition, and their issues was increased traffic, loud noise from receptions and the wedding attendees, alcohol consumption that might be a problem, and future commercial construction. If this happens, that give them the chance to expand more, or the neighbors will go further and do some commercial use in the area. So that is like selected like summary of the conditions, and like I guess like we emailed you like all the conditions. Yes. The septic is like the biggest thing. So we normally say like contact the Arkansas Health Department to adhere like with all the restriction. Basically, no septic and no attendees or like no the number of attendees should be restricted based on what the septic can hold. If it's like 200, you stick to the 200 or less. So you can't go just like beyond like whatever like you decide like number of attendees. So that's why we have this condition. And basically there is always no parking on the portion of the septic, and that's why they have a specific designated like area for the parking. The planning condition is like straightforward, limit hours of operation according to the application, Monday to Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Friday to Sunday from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. No outdoor amplified music. They're not gonna have any kitchen in the area and reception area, so like every food should be catered because of safety, fire safety. And once again, any further like expansion or like changes in this the scope of the project need to come before like the planning board to be approved. If there's any further question, let me know. And that's basically the overall like plan, drainage plan, and the grading of the entire area. So they're gonna have the pond, the parking, and the reception, the chapel, and they're gonna have that's like an engineering civil plan. And that's basically what's just gonna happen once the final is coming through our office. Mr. Joshua Hall like FOIA'd us like on April 12th, requesting all the information about like the plans for like the road department, like the roads, and like how it's gonna the road's gonna be paved. And like I replied to him, like I thought it was not like within the 3 days, because we had like issue with the transferring from exchange 13 to 19. It took like a couple of days extra. So, and I told him to be beneficial, like, and if you need to get more information about the road, since the planning do not get involved in the road department, like operations, to contact the road department for like any further information. Within few minutes, we received another FOIA from Mr. Jared Phillips. He requested all the information about the policies, paperwork, communication of the CUP and LSD, and that was also like delivered like on time. The same day, on the April 17th, we received like an appeal for that CUP project, and I will come back to this one. Next, please. And this document shows that like the Mr. Jared Phillips like received all the information from the FOIA request he asked for, and it was delivered on April 17th, including like all the communication, maps, emails, basically plans, almost every, I gave him like the CUP and the LSD like folder like with everything in it and the communication, so yeah. Just like for clarification, when the ordinance says like 300 feet notification from the property, one of the reasons that Mr. Hale was not like notified, if you take a look at where he lives, he is not within the green, it's in the blue. So like basically driveway to driveway from his property to the project is about like 0.4, over like a third of a mile distance. And for Mr. like Jared Phillips, it's about like a mile where he lives from the project. And that's why both of them, they were not notified. However, when I was asked, can you provide us with all the information, I did. When I say I, it's like our office. This is like the appeal discussion. I'm just like answering some of the questions that came before us like for the appeal. Planning board did not like appropriate to like consider like the Article 10, Section 11 to 200. I want to say like one thing. The planning board members like reached their approval discussion, a decision based on the information provided in the CUP application, technical review comments we received back from the reviewers, and all the discussion that took place during the planning board meeting. Planning board like members and the planning staff believes like with the proposed CUP conditions that like we have like 5 pages of conditions, and the applicant's like willingness to ensure like compatibility, this CUP project may be made more compatible with the rural like residential and agricultural nature of the area. So we try our best. We cannot say like 100% is going to be compatible, but we put condition to make it more. The other like questions like during the appeal is restrictions, no fireworks or like drone photography. So I'm gonna address like the both of them. No fireworks. I looked into our recent. I actually looked into the database, and I found only one project back in 2016 in Goshen Planning area that has a wedding venue with a restriction of no fireworks. And I spoke in person with the project manager at the time, and he told me it was like a mutual agreement between him and the fire department and the neighbors, because it's like in the middle of like a hayfield, just like for safety and security and liability. You know, he doesn't want to be liable for like starting a fire in the county. The other thing is like no drone photography, and this is 100% regulated by the FAA Part 107 commercial drone pilot for like the small UAS. And I can speak like from experience. I'm a certified pilot, so I can tell you, you either have photography for like fun or you have photography for commercial. If you're like doing this commercially for profit, you have to have this certification. And everyone knows with this certification that you don't fly over like cars or like a populated area. So that's one of the things. And there is no other like restriction that I can think of. I need to add one more thing. It's not in the presentation that our code of ordinances, like the planning code of ordinances, does not. There is nothing in our code that says that any of the neighbors can impose conditions on any projects or have restrictions, or at least put some restriction on like what kind of project that can go like into anyone's property. That's why we do the conditional use permit and we give conditions. Most of you own like properties, you don't have any condition on them because it's agricultural use or residential if it's in the county. Otherwise, you have conditions, and that's all. If you have any question, the applicant and the property owner are here like to answer more.
Before we do that, are there any other agencies, governmental agencies here this evening that need to comment on this project? We're going to have plenty of time for debate and discussion. Does anybody have any, I guess, fact questions for Director Adda at this time that you would like to have addressed? Justice Koger?
Well, I do have a question, but you may have covered it that I
Yes,
didn't
ma'am.
understand. Could you go over the part about the septic again? When you
Yes. From my understanding, I guess like also the applicant, Mr. Dirk Thibodeau, is here. From my understanding, like the past 2 weeks, the designated representative that like takes like care of the septic, they already turned in all the paperwork to the health department, and they're working because it's like it takes time like to get the permit. However, for the CUP requirements, everything is needed is a perk test, and the perk test was delivered, and it already perked, and it was approved, and that's everything we need for the CUP. But for the septic, let's say the septic, like after the design and everything, the designated representative says like, yeah, this can't hold up to 150, so they are obligated to be restricted and abide by that number and not go beyond.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Director Adda at this time? If not, we're going to move into the applicant presentation.
Thank you.
The applicants have the opportunity to present, and the time limit will be limited to 30 minutes per ordinance. Welcome, sir.
Hey, good evening. My name is Dirk Thibodeau. I'm with HAF. I'm representing the Walkers, the owners of the project. Sam did a wonderful job in explaining the process and what we've been through. I didn't know if anybody had any specific questions about it. It is a wedding chapel. It is a reception hall, associated parking with it, located on the top of a hillside, not located up against the street, in a pastoral setting. The parking lot is pulled to the side and screened with landscaping so it's not visible from the street. So we've tried to make it as desirable and inviting as we possibly can, and I think they've done a wonderful job with their vision and how the ultimate product will turn out.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Thibodeau? Justice Leming?
I don't have a question, I just want to make a comment. The wedding venue, if I was a neighbor, I would thank the Walkers for putting a wedding venue in instead of putting in, you could come in there and put 10 or 15 or 20 chicken houses in there, listen to chicken trucks all night and dust fly all day and smelly fans all the evenings. The wedding venue is going to be a really, really nice thing, and it's going to really help that area. The road will help the area, the traveling up the road. Yeah, they might be somebody drives fast. They drive fast on every road in Washington County. It's not just that one, and it's going to make a little difference, but it ain't. There's a lot of people out there really looking forward for it and want the road, and it's going to improve everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Leming. Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Thibodeau, would you be open to considering the additional condition of no aerial fireworks?
Yeah, I don't think that was an issue. You're fine with that. What is your opinion on fireworks?
Treated like every other person in the county. If my neighbor can shoot off fireworks, I want to be able to shoot fireworks on.
So no. Okay, thank you.
I do not think that is a desire of theirs. That wasn't ever on the agenda as something that they would plan for or want to provide as an amenity or a part of the wedding process.
Justice Rios Stafford?
Thank you, Judge. I'll pause for a second here.
Yeah, the question was, did the fireworks isolate it to the wedding venue, or how does that affect the personal property? The Walkers have personal property that adjoins the wedding venue property, so I'm assuming we're talking about just the wedding venue and fireworks.
If it's just the wedding venue property, yes, I'll accept that. I don't want to be restricted to my personal property and not to be able to do what I want.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it would just be associated with the CUP, and the CUP is associated with the wedding venue.
Thank you, Judge. Well, one of my concerns is that the advertising, the online advertising for the venue already appears to be in contradiction to the limits that are spelled out in the conditional use permit. Under planning conditions, it says, limit the hours of operation to Monday through Thursday from 8 to 4:30 and Friday through Sunday from 8 to 10. So I visited the website just about an hour before the meeting, and you know, there's a kind of a PDF up on there that says always included 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. use of the Grand Willow Springs reception hall, porch, and acreage of the property. Please ask guests to depart by 11 p.m. TGWS manager on duty on standby from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. the day of the wedding. Prep kitchen open from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. And then it says extras. So this is beyond what it says is already included. Extra hours in venue, $500 an hour. And entire wedding packet, weekend package, Friday 6 a.m. to Sunday 11 p.m. Contact for pricing. So how does that seems to be in violation of the conditions spelled out in the CUP.
Eric Walker, I'm the owner of the property, and yes, ma'am, you are exactly correct. That website just actually came out like 2 or 3 days ago.
Okay.
We saw that. Our website designer is in Woodstock, Minnesota. She proceeded with it. We didn't get her the accurate, and she is in the process of reconstructing the website and changing according to the planning board's restrictions.
Okay, so in other words, the venue will not be open on those hours, 6 a.m. to midnight. They'll be open according to what's in the CUP?
We have to follow what the planning board approved.
Okay.
And that's the way Sam explained it to me. Whatever the CUP was approved for, that's what we have to follow. And it was just it was a matter of trying to review everything, and then she got her papers mixed up, and she's supposed to correct that.
Okay. And then how many people were you approved on for septic?
I don't remember.
The number hasn't been approved because the process is still going on. The number that they were looking at was around 350 is what they thought the system would work for.
Would accommodate? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, again, on
and,
the advertising, it says 500
Well, yes,
plus.
ma'am, and to address that, all of that paperwork went to the website designer back in January. We didn't get to go to the CUP until much later, once we got those approvals and got some changes, and those corrections will be made on the website.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I drove by there, not too long ago. My husband and I drove by there to take a look and noticed it was already well under construction. Was it already under construction before you were approved for the CUP, or did construction start after you were approved for the CUP?
So I'll be 100% transparent and honest. Yes, we started prior to the CUP. I was told that I was on my own if it did not get approved. This project is for my daughter. My daughter just graduated Oklahoma State last weekend. I hope a lot of you have family, and my kids are the most important thing to me in my life. And I wanted my daughter to come home to Prairie Grove, to our farm, and to live right there where she grew up. This was an opportunity to give a young girl that has an entrepreneurial spirit to pursue her dreams. And if I didn't provide it for her, then she would be moving to western Oklahoma with her future fiance. The reason we started early, being 100% honest, ma'am, is her wedding's my first wedding, and it's set for December. We missed our deadline because of wanting to make sure all the paperwork was 100% T's crossed, I's dotted, and we missed our, we were going to try for the February, weren't we? We were going to try for the February approval. We couldn't get all our I hired a civil engineer, an electrical engineer, a mechanical engineer, a structural engineer, an architectural firm, the Corbetts to do my sewer system, and all of those parties, they did not get everything done because of the Christmas season, and we missed our deadline by 5 days. And so we had to wait a month, and schedule-wise, just being 100% honest, if I didn't go ahead and start, I wouldn't have a wedding for my daughter in December. Right now, as it is, I'm pulling in every favor I know, because that's what I do for a living, is construction, and I'm calling every friend and favor that I can to expedite it. And yes, we are going very fast and rapid, because if I don't, I have to tell my daughter and her friends that we can't have her wedding at the time that they requested.
Okay. I got one final question here. There's already a question about the fireworks. There was 3 other conditions that the neighbor suggested potentially, and I just wanted to ask your opinion about those, if you would be amenable to agreeing to any of those. Condition on the number of events that could be held per week, no outdoor light shows, and restrictions on drones.
Restrictions on drones?
Any of those
Drones,
3.
is that what you said?
Yeah, that was
Drones.
the third one, yeah. It was light shows, drones, and number of events per week. Since in the application you said about one event per week already that you were estimating.
So what is your question? I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, that one per week wasn't specifically spelled out in the conditions of the CUP. And
I want to follow what was approved unanimously by the CUP members.
Okay.
The board, planning board, that's what we would like to proceed.
Okay, so you wouldn't be open to any other restrictions like light shows or no light shows or anything like that?
I mean, to be honest, ma'am, I want to be treated just like all my neighbors, that if my neighbor can have a light show, why couldn't I? We don't have that on our plans, but I'm being 100% honest, I don't want to restrict myself if my neighbor that lives beside me, just because it's not a commercial business, if they can have the same thing for their personal use, I don't understand why we can't.
Okay.
So.
And then the final thing was, I think there were some concerns, because one of the conditions was no, I think, amplified music. And I think the neighbor was maybe concerned because some portions of the facility had outdoor areas, and I think there was just some concern about that.
Yeah, there will not be any amplified music.
Yeah.
Obviously, people will talk outside, and there will be music played outside, but it's not amplified.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Justice Fleming?
Okay, Brian, you may have to help me. In Washington County, there should not be no fireworks ordinances, are they? That you know of? Most of the time in your cities, the city will create their own ordinance and their own rules and laws. When it's dry in the summertime, the fire marshal can say it's dry, we can't shoot fireworks, we can't burn trash. I don't know of anything on the books that says there's anything against fireworks in any of Washington County, are they?
There's no restrictions on fireworks and the discharge of fireworks in Washington County that I'm aware of. There is some regulations regarding fireworks stands out in the county and having to have the fire marshal come out and approve of those. But as far as the discharge or shooting off the fireworks, then you're right. There is nothing on the county. The fire marshal can, if the conditions are too dry, put a burn ban in place, which would stop the fireworks, which has happened in the past. I think last summer and the year before last, I think there was some of that went on. So that is a pretty regular occurrence in the summertime.
So that's to say there's really no ordinances or laws or rules in Washington County against fireworks being shot?
Correct.
Okay. And I want to say one more thing. We was talking about loud music, and there's a family lives right across the road from me Saturday night. Their 16-year-old daughter, they're Hispanics, and they have some special deal when they become 16. Well, they started music at 5:30, and at 3:30 in the morning, they were still playing really loud music that I couldn't understand, booming and banging. Hey, it just happens once in a while. I let it go. So let it happen. Thank you.
Justice Coger?
Judge, at the Planning Commission meeting, when this came before the Planning Commission, there was a lot of talk about the road being paved, and the landowner, or the applicant at the time, said that he had talked to the county road department about paving the road, but then we've heard tonight from Mr. Hell that he's a neighbor and he didn't want the road paved, if I understood that correctly. So what is the status on paving the road? What are your plans on that?
The plans are to pave the road.
To pave the road?
Yes, ma'am.
And is the applicant going to pay for part of that? Like
Oh,
he's,
sorry, yes, the applicant is paying for half the road improvements.
that's all I had, thank you.
Let me jump in on that, because we're going to get into a discussion later about roads, and I want to be very clear that at the end of the day, those types of decisions will be made by the judge's office. And while we have talked with the applicant about this road, it will be considered. We haven't made any final determination of if and or when this road will be paved, and so that there's a lot of variables, as I'm sure all you guys can understand, that go into that. It's not just money; it's the time and the man hours, the machine hours, and that type of thing. So, let me close by saying we're always interested in applicants coming and helping us out as a county and doing what's right. And in a perfect world, I will also address that every road in this county would be paved. But of course, we don't live in a perfect world, and so I want to answer that question as honestly as I can. That we welcome citizens and businesses and anybody who wants to help us, but it has to make sense and it has to follow our schedule. Justice Fleming?
Yeah, anytime you have something coming in like this and wants to help pay for half the road, that's a no-brainer. That's good for the citizens, and that's, yeah, they're going to benefit, but the citizens are going to benefit also, and the fire department is going to benefit, and your ambulances, everybody's going to benefit when you pave a road, and it helps the neighborhood. And if there's more lots out there to be sold, they're going to be sold because it's on pavement. A lot of people won't build a new home on a road, it's a dirt road, and so it's a win-win for all. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is an area that we see a lot of growth in. We plan for a lot of growth. I guess what I was trying to address is some of the accusations made by the public earlier in the meeting, that we're trying to somehow hide the ball or not be open and transparent about these plans. The fact is that we're in preliminary conversations and there's no plans. I mean, that's just it. I know that many times people FOIA something they want it to exist, and it just doesn't exist. We don't have a schedule. We lay out our schedule for paving. We're starting in the thick of paving season right now. That happens over the summer. We have a whole list of roads we hope to get to, and we have to work those in when we can. So. That's mostly what I was addressing for the justices. Thank you. Justice Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. I wish you great success.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Thibodeau or the Walkers regarding the project? If not, we'll open it up to public comments. Okay. Correct. Okay, yeah, with that, we'll open it up to public discussion, and we'll try to alternate between for and against. We have a public comment period of 30 minutes, established for 3 minutes per person. And with that, is there anybody that wants to speak in favor of this project? If not, we'll move to those who want to speak in opposition. Does anyone want to speak in opposition this evening?
Hello, my name is Margot Hale, and I live at 15564 Prairie View Road. And I want to share with you why I believe this court should uphold the appeal of this conditional use permit. For a little bit of background, my dad, David Daniel, served on this quorum court from 2002 to 2008, and he's the one who proposed countywide zoning and worked with others to get these regulations passed. I was talking to my dad about this development, and he reiterated that his goal for having everything zoned either agricultural or rural residential was to protect farmland and rural homeowners. He saw that without a check on development and a rezoning and conditional use process, all land was at risk to be developed with no consideration to the impacts it has on an area. In past quorum court meetings, multiple justices have said that these CUP approvals should not be based on emotions, but be based on the criteria set forth by the county regulations. This proposed development does not meet the criteria for allowance of conditional uses as set forth by the county. This development is not compatible with the surrounding area. This is a quiet road with farms and rural residences. There are approximately 15 houses on this road, and this development will bring up to 120 cars to each event. There are no other commercial businesses within several miles of this venue. The residences on Prairie View Road range from a camper trailer to a home of about 3,400 square feet, and the majority of homes are less than 2,000 square feet. So I don't see how a chapel and reception hall of more than 17,000 square feet are compatible with surrounding properties. This is not an existing barn or building that is being converted, but a brand new, very large construction project. As advertised, it will maybe accommodate up to 500 guests, making it one of the largest wedding-specific venues in all of Northwest Arkansas. With a drastic increase in traffic and the fact that alcohol can be served at this venue with no oversight or regulation, we believe this will endanger the safety of our road. Our road is not included in the county's plan that we know of to be paved, but as we've talked about, the developer is proposing to pay for the road to be paved. We believe this will cause our road to be less safe with increased speeds and additional cut-through traffic. We enjoy peaceful, quiet evenings and weekends on our farm, where we spend a great deal of time outside with our children. We are at risk of losing that because of this development on our road. We don't want to see and hear the activity of weekly events. Increased noise from wedding receptions and an increase in traffic is injurious to the enjoyment of our property. Most venue activity will not be during normal business hours, but will be in the evenings and on weekends when we are at home wanting to be outside enjoying our property. Property value is not just found in money. To many people who live in my area, value is found in a rural lifestyle, in peace and quiet, and in farming. Bringing in development reduces these values. There are not other commercial businesses nearby. Please don't start that first domino in destroying another rural agricultural area of our county. You have the power to protect the neighbors and our rural spaces before they are gone. Thank you.
Ma'am. Anyone wanting to speak for the project? Additional comments in opposition to the project?
My name is Jared Phillips. I live at 16704 Mateer Road in Justice Lemming's district, and who never got back to me when I emailed him about this. I actually have a couple of questions for the court about this, and a few of these were questions I asked the Planning Commission, and they seemed unable to answer pretty simple questions that maybe they should have been able to answer. But one is, like Mr. Hale, I sent in a FOIA request on the 12th of April. I know it got received. I heard back from a few different people in the county. I did not hear back from the county judge or his office. I didn't hear back from the county attorney, nor did I hear back from the county road department. I'm no stranger to FOIA requests. I'm a historian. I do research and I work with federal documents and state records all the time. I understand that sometimes FOIA material is just not there. But if we're being told that there are conversations and things happening, and there should theoretically be a record of something, and so things get lost, things get delayed, y'all are very busy people, I would just like to know if there's a plan to figure out a way to more efficiently communicate with us in the county about FOIA requests. I feel like this would be an interesting kind of case study. My teacher brain thinks of this as a case study for my students. A few other questions I have would be, if the county is interested in approving this, has the county thought through the process of dealing with what will come behind this development? I'm assuming, based on the comments from y'all, this development's going to be approved this evening. So I'm asking if y'all have thought not just a few years or months or an election cycle down the road, but have you asked the question, what will be in this area in 25 years? And have you figured out a way to effectively plan, not just for this immediate 6 months or a year, but have you effectively planned for road maintenance and environmental impact and the population pressure, the loss of agricultural land that you all are talking about holding dear? Have you figured out a way to sort of think through what these mean, and not just in a philosophical sense, but in the nuts and bolts of maintaining the county? The Planning Commission didn't have any answers to a question like this, so I didn't know if maybe y'all had an answer for it or had some idea of how this would work, because I've studied the history of development in Washington County, and I can tell you in the 40 years that I've lived in this county, the county has rarely had any kind of a perspective like that on it. And so I'm hopeful that you all would be able to take this opportunity to do that. But that's all I have, just questions for you and some general comments. So, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any comments in favor? Welcome, sir.
Good evening. Larry Walker, 15053 Walker Road. And your boys look great on the news at the...
Thank you, sir.
Well, you know, I sit and listen, and I've been on that farm since in the early 80s. We join it. We look right at the venue. You know, I hear people saying, well, it's going to disrupt a lot of children. How many of you have children that have got married? You know, people need nice places. And, you know, used to we all got married in churches, but I don't know of hardly any places anymore that you get married in a church. So you need a nice venue, and this is going to be a nice venue. You know, as far as agricultural, you know, yeah, we need to keep agricultural, but I farm. I've laid brick for my life to support the farm, and you can't make a living off of a farm in northwest Arkansas. And we were at the last meeting when the Malley Wagon, and one of the speakers spoke about there's no more room in a city for any kind of developments. Well, okay, if there's no more room in the city, we've got to move to the farms. We've got to move to the rural areas. And I was on the planning board, so I know exactly what the planning board went through. So I served there. And yeah, it's tough sometimes, but I'm sorry. We are in a community, if you don't want growth, you need to move out of northwest Arkansas, because northwest Arkansas is a growth area. And you know, we all make a living from that growth one way or the other. But this is a very nicely done venue. We've been to venues in Texas to weddings, and you know, it makes a really nice wedding when you have a nice venue and it's done right. And this one is being done right. And I just applaud you for listening. I know how it is to sit behind that bench and listen to everybody that talks, but I just would very truly ask that you would approve this CUP. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Anyone speaking in opposition?
Josh Joshua Hale, 15564 Prairie View Road. A lot of the stuff's been covered, so I'm going to try to skip around here. Sorry if it's kind of convoluted a little bit. I appreciate Justice Rios Stafford and Justice Koger for responding to my emails that I sent out, even though you're not my justice, my representative, and bringing up some of the concerns I had, so thank you very much. I appealed the decision of the planning board for this cut because I feel like the planning board based their decision on the actual criteria for approval. In fact, the planning board had almost no discussion at the meeting. I found it interesting at the meeting that only people who were time limited and asked to stop talking because their time had ran out were people who were against the cup. I went back and watched. Everyone who gave public comments that night, I timed it, went over the time limit, but the only two people who were asked to stop making comments were those who were against this. The judge brought up about the FOIA requests and that, you know, that maybe I'm trying to like create something here. At that planning board meeting, it was said, and it's on record, you can go see it, that the applicant talked to the road department. They gave him a figure and he said, "Where do I sign?" So there should be some sort of paper trail there or some sort of information that I would get on a FOIA request, and I did not get that. I believe it was my justice said something about chicken houses, and it could be chicken houses. It's zoned for chicken houses. I wouldn't be up here talking if they were putting in chicken houses because it's zoned for that. Okay? Now, I would much rather my daughters, when they're coming home in a few years, when they start driving, meet a chicken house on that road, a chicken truck on that road, than 100 people who've been served alcohol without any control driving home on my road when they're coming home from their friend's house or a football game. I'll take a chicken truck any day over those people who have been drinking, because I know what those weddings are like. I've been to them. They serve alcohol, and there's no restrictions on it. So, safety, I would much rather have that. The one other thing that was brought up about the hours, just to throw this in there too, on the planning board, it's till 4:30 p.m. during the week, and so on their advertising, they've advertised discounts for weekday events, and so I would think that the weekday events, if they have them, should be done by 4:30 as well. I just wanted to throw it in there. And on the Arkansas Bride website, where they have advertised, they've also advertised an outdoor party area, so I would hope that that party would have non-amplified music. I'm sure it will be a beautiful venue. This is nothing personal against this family. They have been good neighbors to me thus far. I just don't believe this venue is compatible and belongs on our road and will affect the neighbors negatively. This venue does not benefit the neighbors in any way. Again, all the people using this will be coming from outside the area, outside of the state. This is not a business that caters to the neighbors and helps the neighbors in any way. It's all for outside business for the most part.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. That's time.
Thank you.
Are there any additional comments in favor of the project?
My name is Beanne Walker, and I live at 15053 and have been there since 1980. We've owned that property, and I'm not here to talk totally about the venue or totally to talk about the one family who's in opposition. What I want to tell you about is the neighbors who are so excited. And if you got the letters that stated how many of them signed that approved and were excited about it, I mean, they are excited about getting a dirt road paved as a possibility, about watching the venue go up. The neighbor across the street posted on Facebook how she loves watching the construction and she's excited about it. There's another older lady who lives next door to Josh and Margot Hale, and she's excited. She wants to come and look, and Eric's welcomed her to come anytime she wants to. But these neighbors are being blessed by this whole situation. And weddings are a blessing to people. I don't know why we keep forgetting that. It's a positive thing, not a negative thing. There'll never be anything horrible going on at this place. Now, can we promise you that someone will not bring champagne to their own wedding? No, people are going to do that. That's reasonable. Will there be uncontrolled behavior? No. It will be stopped if there is. And it won't be bothering Josh and Margot a half a mile away. They can't hear, They can't see. There are neighbors who are closer, and they don't seem to have a problem with it. So I just want you to think about other people, not just the one family who's against it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further comments in opposition? One last takers on any comments in favor?
Eric Walker, 14844 Walker Road, and I just mainly want to come up here and make sure we clarify a few things. The judge is absolutely right. The hills are somewhat right, but on the road in December, I did go in and sit down with the road department, and I told them what my plans were of this venue and what I was hoping to do, and I said, how does that affect my CUP and all of that? And they said, well, sometimes if the road needs, we request that the developer participate in the road. And I said, what kind of money are we talking? And they kind of said, well, you know, it all depends on all this, but you're talking roughly this much money. And I did say, hey, if that's how much, sign me up today. And they said, well, number one, the county judge has to approve that project. Number two, the quorum, or that we have to run it through our system. We don't even know what projects are on our list. But I did have that conversation with them, and all it was if that's what needs to happen as the developer, I'm more than happy to participate. I would have a question for you as Quorum Courts. I submitted to Sam to put in your packets letters of affidavits from neighbors. Margot said there are 15 houses. There actually are 14 houses on that road. In your packet, you will find affidavits from 12 of those in favor of this venue and excited about it. My neighbor that sits right across from the wedding venue is Miss Peg Bills. When I sat and talked to her and I said, there's a possibility that we'll get the road paved, she said, she literally started crying and she said, you don't know what that will do for my health. I have asthma and the dust boils over on me, and that will help my health so much. But every neighbor I stopped and talked to were excited about the venue. They're happy. They said, you have lived across from us since 1980, and you have always been a good neighbor. We're tickled that your daughter, they all know my daughter, they're tickled she's coming back to Northwest Arkansas. They're tickled for the opportunity, and they're all excited and happy. So that is one thing. As far as the fireworks and that, we want to be a good neighbor. We want to do what our neighbors want us to do. I just don't want my personal property to be restricted because I have a venue. I have a property that borders this property. So I don't want those restrictions on me personally, and that's where I guess I misunderstood your question, Mr. Simons. And I know I'm limited, but I would just ask for you to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, that's time.
Okay, thank you.
Want to ensure fairness this evening. Any other speakers in opposition?
Jenny Flanagan, and I'm here from Fayetteville. I have no connection to this. This is the first time I've ever heard about it. From a constituent perspective, this sets a precedent. They've already started the construction. They came in here tonight assuming that it was going to get pushed through because of a personal connection. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of opposition, and so it kind of feels like we're shortcutting the process here. And so I'm just going to say, you know, I think that sets a precedent and makes it look like we don't have a process in place for people to actually go through to do CUPs. So.
Thank you, Ms. Flanagan. Any other comments in favor of the project? Any comments in opposition?
I don't have a for or against. I just kind of have a general about our process. Sarah Moore from Fayetteville. I sit on the city council in the city of Fayetteville, and so we see, you know, a lot of changes for zoning and large-scale developments, and we go through conditional use permits and appeal processes. Over the years, I've attended a lot of Quorum Court meetings since 2019, looking and in planning commission meetings and seeing a lot of CUPs and seeing the county face a lot of hard conversations and really having to split hairs about whether or not they're going to side with individuals who want to have a different use than the two zonings that exist. As I've dug through some of the information, I've talked to folks that have been in planning for some time in the region. I understand that our current zoning is a holding place. That there were at some point was supposed to be some additional addressing because there was a comment earlier. I mean, our area is going to continue to grow. And so we really do have to plan where that growth is going to be. I don't think it is fair to taxpayers that there is a process where they get, mired down in cost and time and, hurt relationships when we have to go through the CUP process. But I would really urge that there would be some considerations of thinking about future land use, thinking about changes in zoning, so people can have a better expectation about what can happen with their land, because we are going to have to welcome additional neighbors, into our region and into the county. But we should do it in the most thoughtful way, and also we should make sure we're not spending too much taxpayer money, because every time we end up in the courts, we're costing additional taxpayer time and money that really, we want to be the best steward of those funds that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I would love if we could be germane to this topic this evening. I think we owe it to both the neighbors and the applicants. If we want to debate our overall planning system, I think there's probably ample time to do that in a proper budget or agenda item. Any comments in favor? Any more additional comments in favor?
I'll be very quick. Lindsay Walker, 14844 Walker Road. And I just would like to, if you don't mind, just very quickly clear up just one little point. I think Mr. and Mrs. Hale both alluded to the fact that we came in here assuming that this project would be passed. Never, I'm shaking. We have never assumed anything. Yes, we did move ahead with the construction only because of the deadline for our daughter's wedding. Even if that's the only one that ever gets to be in that building, so be it. But we were hopeful, and we're just trusting the process. We're here just like they are. We're grateful for the whole process and thankful for that. I just wanted to make sure y'all understood that we did not ever assume, trust, rely on the fact that that this would go through. We are just, again, hopeful. I just wanted to make that clear. They said that people had been telling them that, and that is just not the case at all. So I'm sorry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone speaking in opposition?
Hello, Steve Parks, 16214 Kenyon Lake Road. Not necessarily for or against, but I am upset with the fact that it feels like on our road we have a bridge that currently, if you walk across it, is like this. You have to lean to the side to be able to walk across it standing up straight. The last two floods have severely damaged that bridge. That bridge is right down the road from where this property is going in. And the fact that we're talking about the possibility of paving a road right up where we live, and that bridge services a large number of homes, a large number of traffic through that area, it feels like we're getting passed over for a wedding venue site. Could be completely wrong on that. Maybe that's been discussed. Maybe that's on the plan. But anytime we've talked to one of the great workers that's come out to the bridge to inspect the site, they say it's not on the plan, it's not being worked on.
I appreciate it, Mr. Parks. We're running up against our time deadline. I'd like to keep it to this project, the discussion, if we could. Anybody speaking in favor of the project? Any additional comments in opposition to the project? Okay, with that, we'll bring it back to the court for discussion. This will be another item number 9 on the agenda. Is there any further discussion? Do any of the justices have any debate they want to have? Do we have any further comments for our not comments. Do we have any further questions for our planning team or the applicant? Justice Secchi?
Thank you, Judge. Sometimes you just need to put things in order. And since this is a public meeting, I want to put it in order for all Washington County residents to know that we, as Washington County, have a vision for economic growth that's conducive to proper planning and proper growth. We do have that in place and in order. And the thing is, it's not just us. It's a part of the Northwest Arkansas Economic Development Group. So just wanted to say that I believe that
Just a
this
second.
venue...
Justice Lyons, your point of order?
I'm sorry, Judge. The Robert rules of our quorum here is that we should be speaking on the merits of what's being proposed or not proposed. I don't believe what we are discussing here has bearing on the merits of what's in front of us today.
If I may finish, this does have economic value and will add value to Washington County's vision and economic future. Thank you.
Thank
So
you,
I'm voting in favor.
Thank you, Justice Secchi. Justice Pond?
Yes, I believe it was clarified during public comment time. This building that's already being constructed, this facility is not been approved for use of anything commercial. I don't believe that there should be any kind of law in the county that prohibits somebody putting up a structure to meet the needs of a daughter's wedding, and I admire these family values here. If this was not to be approved, this would be a sizable building. It'd be a mighty fine place to stack a lot of hay, park some tractors. This is a right to farm county. And I appreciate that the folks stood back up and made it clear that they don't assume anything has been approved until we vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Pond. Any other comments? Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. It was brought up at the beginning of this discussion, the potential conflict of interest with a fellow quorum court member, and I'm unclear on how we move forward with that. Is that a determination?
Any conflicts of interest need to be considered and handled by the justice themselves.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Justice Dennis?
Thank you, Judge. I represent approximately 17,000 people in District 10.
Justice Dennis, I'm sorry. Will you move that microphone closer to you, sir? I'm sorry about that.
I'm a JP for District 10, and I represent approximately 17,000 people. They, too, have their JP. They have a right for their JP to vote for them on this subject or any other subject that comes before this court. So to argue that I should recuse myself when I represent them is wrong. And I will always represent the people that I've been put here to represent. They are not that is not my district, but at the same time, that's the way I feel about it. I think my reputation has been challenged, and I'd be glad to talk to you after court if you'd like to talk, because my family didn't. They're my family, yes. They didn't tell me about it until January. Didn't even tell me. I didn't know. I was one of the last people in Prairie Grove to know. And so they made a point not to talk to me and a point not to tell me. And the reason they finally decided to tell me was that they would be in competition with me. So I have a wedding venue. And they would actually be competing with me, but That doesn't matter to you though, does it? And so, so I'll be voting on it, and I'll vote on for anything that comes before me on this court. Largest fireworks show in Prairie Grove area. It's bigger than Farmington City. It's bigger than the city of Prairie Grove, and it's exactly 200 yards from my wedding venue. So every July, I advertise it just the opposite. I say, hey, you want to rent a good wedding venue that's got a lot of fireworks, come out to my place on July 4th and rent it, because it's the best show there is in Northwest Arkansas. And it's on a personal farm, personal place. And it does rattle my 120-year-old windows, and but I live with that. Said that we didn't plan for growth, and we don't know, or we don't look ahead. 25 years ago, in my community called Walnut Grove, at the time, now it's not called that anymore, there were 6 houses. Now there's 600 houses. The front door of my chapel is in Farmington. The back door of my chapel is in Prairie Grove. And so I call BS on the alcohol challenge, because I know this family, they fight alcohol right and left. So that's a far stretch, far stretch. I've done 118 weddings. I bet I haven't had but maybe 4 that have had any alcohol, and one couple was from Russia. In Russia, people do things a little different than we do, but they were respectful. They drank a lot outside, and they cleaned up every single thing. Only wedding that I haven't ever had to clean up for. I clean up for everybody else's, but they cleaned up completely. So I call BS on that, because I know their policies. I know how far it is away from the other properties. I've never had a neighbor once complain about my wedding venue, and it's a lot closer than what theirs are. So I am a little bit of an expert about weddings. I've done 118 of them. And so I disagree with a lot of your comments that you've made. Just absolutely not true. Probably out of that 118, I've had 6 night weddings. All the rest of them are when the sun's still up. And it's my choice, their choice. And so there's your 118 examples that disprove what you had to say. So I'm going to vote because I think I need to, because what I've heard has just not been true. It's not been accurate, and it's just someone's opinion. Thank you. Unless the lawyer, Hester, is there any legal reason why I cannot vote?
I don't know the particulars of what the conflict is, so I couldn't really tell you.
I'll be voting then. Thank you.
Any other discussion by the justices? With that, we'll move to item number 10. Item number 10 are the 2 ordinances that have been drafted for this particular situation. Item 10.1, an ordinance ratifying the conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board. That would be the one we'd motion if you wanted to approve this project. Item 10.2 is an ordinance denying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board. Justice Secchi?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the CUP for 10.1.
I have a motion to pass item 10.1 by Justice Secchi, a second by Justice Dennis. This will be read for the first time, and then what we'll need is a motion to suspend the rules. Counselor Lester, will you please read item 10.1 by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Zoning Board of Adjustments.
Justice Secchi?
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to suspend the rules and advance this to the second reading.
I have a motion to suspend the rules and move to a second reading by Justice Secchi, second by Justice Pond. Ms. Myra, will you please call a roll on that? Oh, sorry. Yes, Justice Justice, did you have a comment outside of your second? Okay. Justice Koger?
Thank you, Judge. I would just ask that we not move this forward to the second and third readings tonight, because I remember a few weeks ago, we had a CUP for, I think it was Molly Wagner, and because there was opposition from the community, from the neighbors, we did not move that forward. So I would just ask that we not move this forward. If we do move it forward, then I cannot vote for it tonight. Thank you.
Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. I think it was expressed the time-sensitive nature of the project at hand, and in that consideration, I would admonish my fellow colleagues to go ahead and suspend the rules and move forward.
Justice Dennis? Justice Rios Stafford?
Thank you. I'm not exactly sure what the time-sensitive part is. The construction's already underway. The folks have said that they're going to build the venue regardless, even if it's just for their daughter in December. And so I'm not sure exactly what is time-sensitive here.
Justice Ricker?
Call the vote.
I have a motion to call the question by Justice Ricker, a second by Justice Simons. All those in favor of calling the question? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Myra, will you please call the question? Call a roll on the question. This is a motion to suspend the rules and move to a second reading.
J.P. Ecke. Charles Dean. Chandra Washington. Beth Koger. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Gary Ricker. Butch Pond. David Wilson. Sean Simons. Sorry, Kyle Lines, I'm sorry.
Item 10.1 will move to a second reading next month. With that, we're going to move on to item number 11. Counselor, will you read item number 11 by title only?
Item 11 is an ordinance amending ordinance 2018-50 to update the vacation policy in the Washington County Employee Handbook.
Thank you, Counselor Lester. This is the one, if you remember, we have a hard copy of this ordinance this evening with an amendment to it. I just want to bring that, with a proposed amendment to it, I bring that to your attention. Justice Lemming?
Thank you, Judge. I think we need to, I think there's some employees that still need some communications about this new change of vacation policy. There's a lot of older folks that's got a lot more time they're gonna lose, and there are a lot of them that's not liking the fact that the county's telling them they've gotta take off. There's some employees that like to come to work and don't ever take off, and they like to save that up for rainy days. If they get sick, they can use their vacation as well as their sick leave. And I just think there's some employees that I've talked to that says that they really hadn't had nobody explain it to them, and their supervisors can't explain it to them right. I just think we need to, I think we need a little bit more time on this before we pass it. Thank you.
Justice Koger?
Thank you, Judge. I want to say that I've also been contacted by some county employees, and they're not, it's not that they're against this, it's that they don't understand it. And it's that I have been told that by a few people, I'm not going to say which department or anything because they did not want that disclosed, but they have been told, they don't like being told when they have to take vacation. They want to be able to build their vacation days and take vacation if and when they want to. And they also feel like that their concerns have not been, that their concerns are just being brushed aside. And one person told me that their supervisor didn't know about this until last Thursday. And when they started asking their supervisor questions, that supervisor couldn't answer their questions. And they're also worried about their sick days, and they have a very simple request, and I think we should honor this. They're requesting that Ms. Burchett come to the different departments and talk to the employees and let them ask her questions that she can answer, and that will make them either help them feel better about this, or at least know what's going to happen, how it will impact them. So I'm speaking for them tonight. Thank you.
Further discussion? Justice Lyons.
Can we get an explanation of what's changing? The only thing I see is 3 sentences marked out that doesn't jive with some of the things I'm hearing.
Director Burchett, would you like to come up and help explain the proposed amendment?
There was one sentence, and it followed like 3 lines. I believe it was originally line 70 through 72 or something like that. That sentence, whenever we started trying to apply it into the technology side, into the computer system, it didn't make sense with the rest of the policy as it was written. So we decided to ask to pull that out.
About whether you earn vacation or you don't earn vacation based on your hire or separation date. Is that correct? Am I reading this correctly?
That's
what's marked out. That's what's marked out.
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
So that's been taken away, so that no longer will apply.
Well, I believe that the statement said something as to the effect of, in regards to like payout of time.
So specifically, an employee who is hired with the county on or prior to the 15th day of the month or separates from service on or after the 16th day of any month shall earn vacation leave for that month.
Yeah, so that contradicts the other policy, thank you, the other policy, parts of the policy. And so we pulled that out so that employees would not suffer if they had not accrued their time yet, because now every employee will be accruing their time based on their date of hire. And so if you have an employee that accrues their time towards the end of the month because that's when their hire date fell, then that statement would keep them from potentially being paid out for time that they should have been paid out for.
Okay, so again, it has to do with earning of it and paying out of it.
Correct.
But not taking vacation.
Yeah, yes, correct.
I mean, I don't disagree with some of the other comments that if there is confusion, I think we should try to make sure it's solved. I mean, to me, this is a benefit to the employees. We should reemphasize that any way we can. And it's really having to do with the points that we've made. And that's the reason I wanted verification. That I heard about they don't want to be told when they can take it. It has nothing to do with when you can or can't take it from what you're taking out. From my perspective, if I'm wrong, tell me.
Oh, no, that statement has nothing to do with that.
Is there other changes in here that I'm missing, or is that the only change?
There is, I think what's being referred to is there is a statement in the usage section that does say that going forward, employees would be required annually to take a 40-hour vacation. If not, they would lose it at their year anniversary. So I think that that is what everyone is referring to when they're saying that employees are unsatisfied with that. They don't want to be told to take a vacation once a year. I think that's where the concern is. That has nothing to do with the deletion of those lines, though.
Is that a change that you're putting into here new?
No, that was in the original proposal that came before you all.
You just talked about that you have to take vacation.
That was in here last, or at the committee.
That was around, that's not in this ordinance to change right now. That's
No,
not in this
no,
amendment.
that has not been a change, no.
That exists today, no matter what we do today.
No. I think you're misunderstanding. So this policy, when it was brought before you all at committee, the only change that has been made to this policy is the deletion of that one statement.
This isn't the current policy.
No, sir, no.
Okay, sorry.
No.
Appreciate that.
Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. Director Burchett, does your office have an active telephone number that's posted on the website?
I believe we do, yes.
Do you have a working county email that's also posted on the website?
Yes, in fact, we also have a shared department email as well, in addition to now an HR benefits email. And those have been communicated to the workforce through our quarterly newsletters, as well as through mass emails that have been sent out to the entire workforce. I would like to say I have not had employees email me in regards to this since this has become public. There's been the 2 employees following JSAP meetings that have come before me, and I did speak to that during committee with you all, that those suggestions and recommendations were actually taken into account and incorporated prior to it coming before you all through JSAP. So if there's more employees that are not understanding this, and their supervisors aren't able to explain it to them, I'm not aware of that. I have not been made aware of that.
So you do make yourself available to anybody and everybody that has any questions?
Yes, that's part of my job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Justice Lemming?
The change that I think people, explain the carryover then, if there's not a change to this. If it's not changing any, why is the people that's got 30 years and plus gonna not be able to carry over as much time? That's the problem.
There is, okay, that's, I think, what I was trying to clarify. This policy, as it's written, the only change brought before you tonight is that one statement being deleted from it.
Right.
But as far as the current county vacation policy, yes, there are multiple changes to the mechanisms within the current policy in comparison to this.
That's the problem. The little line, these 3 little lines here is not the issue that the people is out in the county that's griping about.
Right, I understand that,
And
yes.
you understand that. How many meetings have you sat in front of the county employees and talked to them?
How many
Any?
meetings
One?
have I sat
None?
in front of the county employees? For the employees who have come before me, or the directors or electeds that have, I have sat in front of them. I don't have a specific number.
It sounds like you're saying that the county employees are to be on the phone contacting you instead of the county HR department opening your doors and going to them.
My
You've
door
got-
is always open, sir.
Well, I'm not saying your door's not always open. I can drive up here and come to your office, but, you know, maybe you need to go to the employees, or maybe you need to send your assistant to the employees and have meetings at the road department or the other buildings, wherever. I think the people ain't getting any information. And I've had them tell me that their supervisor don't know to tell them. So when they ask their supervisor says, I don't understand it. So to me, we're not getting the information to the employee. And I'm probably like a lot of employees, they're probably scared to call you and visit with you per individual one. If you have a meeting in a whole as all of them, you know, if they're there and they don't ask questions, that's their fault. And if they don't explain it, and if it don't get explained to them well. Thank you.
I'll comment on a couple items of that. One, I think, understand the mechanism of kind of get what you're asking is that we would collect every employee in the county together in a common area and go over this with them. And then 2, that this is a policy that came from, a lot of our policies, especially in our handbook, come from management. You know, we want the employees absolutely to understand it, but to have them drive the policy, you can understand how problematic that could get pretty quick. I would hope, but Justice Coger?
Thank you. The people that talk to me, I would envision that Ms. Burchett would come to different departments at different times and talk to them, and they could ask questions. They don't want to call you to ask questions. They're afraid of losing their jobs. That's what I was told. And I think it would be a fairly easy process for you to, you know, set up different times. And they're working during the day. It's hard for them to call. I think I'm not saying that you have one huge meeting and invite all the county employees. That would probably be that probably wouldn't be possible, it would be hard to arrange. But can't we just arrange meetings in specific departments where you could come and talk to people in a group and they could just ask questions? And one other thing that I was told by the employees who contacted me was that they would like for the JSAP meetings to be recorded so that they can view them later, because they realize there's a lot of important stuff that happens at the JSAP meetings. Thank you.
Justice Simons.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a labor law attorney by any means, but County Attorney Lester, does Washington County employ any children?
I'm not aware of any.
All employees are adults?
I believe so.
Justice Secchi.
I guess I didn't get that one. Thank you, Judge. First of all, I too got phone calls, and I asked them immediately, have you reached out to Director Burchett? Well, and in the words of my colleague, Justice Pond, she's a real nice lady. If you just pick up the phone and call her. If you can call me, you can certainly call her, because she's got the answers. I don't. So, secondly, do you have the authority to fire any employee in the county?
Only recommendations from my department to the county judge, so no, I do not.
You do not have
I do
that
not,
authority. So
no.
nobody should be in fear.
Right.
And I really don't think. I think in order to unfreeze people from that fear is we communicate the message of the benefit that this is to everybody in the county. And I'm sure you welcome emails, you welcome phone calls, you never say, don't you ever call me again and hang up.
Yeah.
Because like Justice Pond said, you're a really nice lady.
I would like to say that my department as a whole has worked, and I am one of 3 currently, typically 4. We have as far as the HR department in this courthouse, a very condensed department compared to others. And we have tried very hard since myself coming to the county to open up the communication and to make sure that our employees feel comfortable coming to us, and that we are available to them, and that there's transparency more than there ever was before from the HR department out. So I'm not exactly sure what more I can do personally to bridge that gap. I've done everything that I can possibly think of within the confines of the tools that we have in our department and the technology that we have within our department to make ourselves accessible. So we're doing the best we can with the resources that we do have. We're being very inventive in the way that we try to communicate with our employees. We've never turned an employee away. At least this current staff has not, nor would we. We understand that that's what HR is here for. It's here to not only support the employees, but the organization, as well as the vendors, or in this case, the citizens of the county, with education and support and compliance. So I'm sorry that there are employees that still feel uncomfortable coming to us. I'm not exactly sure what those deficiencies in those relationships are, but I can't fix what I don't know. So if those employees won't reach out to me, there's not a whole lot I can do about that.
Okay, follow up also, if I may. I know in my experience as a business owner, but I've also worked in other organizations and managed teams where it's so easy to say, I don't know, than to take the time and answer the question. It takes a lot of effort to address questions. And sometimes you feel like it's just rapid fire. That's all you did that day was answer questions. So I feel if a supervisor cannot properly answer an employee that they are over, answer the question instead of, I don't know, it breeds fear into the employee, fear and insecurity. Perhaps it'd be best if they would say, I don't know, but I will certainly find out. And there's no reason for any member on this court to perpetuate that divide in communication, because when we had our personnel committee, we worked very hard to bridge the gap between employees and elected officials and the judge's office and HR through communication and collaboration. You've done that. And I would like the JPs to support that vision, mission, and goals to be a better Washington County. That is what we are. So pick up the phone and call her. She's a real nice lady, isn't she, Mr. Pond? Thank you.
Justice Wilson.
Thank you, Judge. Wanted to say a couple of things. Not sure where to begin. Some of this I don't even think should be in front of us, but here we are. First, Director Burchett, I want to say I appreciate what you do. And in a previous life, I was a high school principal and dealt with a lot of employees. And so I'm very sympathetic, because sometimes employees put you in a bad spot by what they do and sometimes what they don't do. And I want to say, as a member of the Quorum Court, and I think I can speak for everybody here when I say that we want to hear from voters, especially when they have a concern, a question, or whatever. We welcome that. But we don't necessarily want to hear from county employees, because sometimes that's different. Because, and I'll put it this way, I feel like if I hear from an employee about a question they have at work, I'll just say it this way, if I'm between an employee and his supervisor, or if I'm between an employee and her supervisor, I'm in the wrong place. Because I feel like they're not addressing something right. And I don't want to be in the wrong place. Because it sounds like maybe they're confused, somebody says maybe they're afraid, but for whatever reason they're not addressing it correctly. They could be addressing it with you, like has been brought up. They could be addressing it with their supervisor. Maybe they feel like they can't. But they don't need to be addressing it with me or anybody on this court, and that could be conveyed to them, because none of us here are their direct supervisor, that's for sure. And it has been pointed out that the county does not employ any children, so we would hope that everybody could figure out what they need to do to get their concerns addressed. But at the same time, on the court, I know we're all sympathetic if an employee does not feel like they have all of their concerns addressed. So we're all sympathetic. I also know that when I was a principal and several principals running a very large high school, there were times when I would say, like you have said, if you have questions or concerns, you need to come see us. Come by and ask. We'll make sure that you have whatever you need. And at one time, one of my very wise teachers said, I'll be glad to come see you, and he did. But he reminded me, he said, not everybody feels comfortable coming to your office. But if you go by their place, their classroom, whatever, they'll be glad to talk to you. And I always try to remember that. And I remembered that not everybody is comfortable reaching out. Sometimes you have to reach out to them. And I think it has been pointed out tonight that if you make it comfortable for them to speak to you, that they will be more likely to open up. But I know supervisors need to be willing to do that. Whatever it takes for our employees, what I mean to say tonight, that's what we need to do. But it's not the job of this court to do that. It's the job of the supervisors to do that. And I hope I believe in our supervisors. I believe in the heads of all the departments. I believe they can do that. I've got confidence in every one of them. if anybody that works for this county wants to visit with me, I'm glad to talk to anybody in this county anytime, but I'm not their supervisor. When they're at work, there's good people that they can reach out to, and I hope they will. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Justice Wilson. Justice Lyons?
Thank you, Judge. Throughout my career, I've worked for about 6 organizations, one of which was the federal government. What I've heard here today is a lot more than I ever received when such policies have been changed. Passed out, emailed out. Your responsibility as an adult working in an organization, if you don't understand, to ask the questions. First stop is the supervisor. The supervisor, I was a supervisor. If somebody came to me with a question I didn't know the answer, my job's to go find the answer for them. My view, it's what I did, and it's how it works in commercial industry today. I agree. I want them to be comfortable. I want them to understand what's here. So I'm kind of in a crunch point of, I think the county's done a lot more than I've ever had done for me when policies have changed in industry. But I also want the county employees to understand what's out there, right? I mean, you took comments directly from the committee, the JSAPI, and you made changes when it came to us. HR is open when they make sense to make those changes. That's a fact based on action, right? So I'm not real sure how to get that message down so they understand it, and that, you know, we'll step up and make sure that the people that work for us have what they need. So it's kind of a fence for me right now.
Justice Washington?
Thank you, Judge. First of all, Ms. Burchett, thank you for all of the work that you've done in revising this policy. And while no county employee reached out to me directly, based on what I've heard, I don't think that anyone is saying that HR is not open. I don't think that anyone is saying that HR is not approachable. What I hear is employees are saying, we simply do not understand. That's what I'm hearing. And so I just want to just make that point that this is not a personal attack on how anyone answers questions or anything like that. But we also have to keep in mind that we have talked for some time about creating a culture here in the county where our employees feel valued, where they feel appreciated, where they feel like their voices are being heard. And I believe that this is an opportunity for us to show them, you know what, we get it, that you don't understand it. Could they reach out to you? Absolutely. Is that the most efficient way to disseminate information? Maybe not. And I understand that we all come from different backgrounds. In my industry, whenever there were big changes or drastic changes made in vacation policies or anything like that, our company would sponsor a series of calls and, hey, we're gonna be here to talk about this. If you have questions, show up and ask your questions. I don't think that that's very hard to do. We could sit here all night and talk about the fact that they're adults and they should be able to ask questions. They should. We can talk about the fact that the supervisor should be able to answer the questions. They should. We can talk about a lot of things, but what we know is that we have employees who work for this county who honestly and truly do not understand these changes. And I just believe that part of our responsibility is to make sure that they do understand those changes without taking anything personally or without this being an indictment on how county government is run. We have an issue if our people do not understand, and I believe that we owe it to them. But my real question was, does this affect the sick days?
No, no,
okay.
It does not.
Okay, that was the real question. Thank you.
Justice Secchi?
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and advances to the second reading.
I have a motion to suspend the rules and move it to a second reading by Justice Secchi, second by Justice Dean. Any further comments? Ms. Meyer, can you call a roll on that, please? There has not been an amendment made yet. Justice Secchi?
I'd like to make a motion that we amend the ordinance striking the portion that was struck by Ms. Burchett. I apologize. I thought that perhaps had been done prior to me arriving to the meeting. So I make a motion to amend.
Striking lines
striking
71 through
70
73.
to 73.
I have a motion to amend the ordinance striking lines 71, 72, and 73 by Justice Secchi, a second by Justice Dean. Any discussion on the amendment? Any discussion or questions on the amendment? With that, we'll take up the question. All those in favor of the amendment? Those opposed? Ms. Meyer, will you call roll? This is the vote on the amendment. We're taking the question up on the amendment.
Lisa Ecke. Charles Dean. Chandra Washington. Beth Koger. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Gary Ricker. Butch Pond. David Wilson. Sean Simons. Kyle Lines.
That motion passes. This ordinance has been amended. Counselor Lester, will you read the ordinance as amended by title only?
An ordinance amending ordinance 2018-50 to update the vacation policy in the Washington County Employee Handbook.
Justice Secchi.
I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules and advance this to the second reading.
I have a motion to suspend the rules and move to a second reading by Justice Secchi, second by Justice Dean. Just a sec.
Lisa
Okay, yep,
Ecke.
I'm sorry. Yep, go ahead. We got you caught up. This is on the question to suspend the rules, move to a second reading.
Charles Dean. Chandra Washington. Beth Koger. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Gary Ricker. Butch Pond. David Wilson. Sean Simons. Kyle Lines.
Motion fails. Item number 11 will move to its second reading at next month's Quorum Court meeting. Item number 12, the consent agenda. Counselor, will you read the consent agenda by title only?
Item 1 on the consent agenda is an ordinance amending the Circuit Court 8 budget for 2023. Item 2 is an ordinance recognizing additional revenue in the amount of $306,481.41 and appropriating $306,481.41. Item 3 is an ordinance appropriating additional revenues of $14,290.92 from the unappropriated reserves in the general fund to various line items in the jail operation and maintenance budget for 2023. Item 4 is an ordinance appropriating $25,000 from the unappropriated reserves in the general fund to the county attorney's budget for 2023. Item 5 is an ordinance amending the collector's budget for 2023. Item 6 is an ordinance amending the election commission budget for 2023. Item 7 is an ordinance amending the veterans services budget for 2023. Item 8 is an ordinance amending the human resources budget for 2023. Item 9 is an ordinance amending the prosecuting attorney's budget for 2023. Item 10 is an ordinance amending the Circuit Court 3 budget for 2023. Item 11 is an ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $100,000 and appropriating $100,000 to the Buildings and Grounds budget for 2023. Item 12 is an ordinance establishing the budget for the County Communications Department for 2023. Item 13 is an ordinance amending the Circuit Clerk's budget for 2023.
Justice Lyons?
Make a motion that we pass the consent agenda.
I I have a motion to pass the consent agenda by Justice Lyons, a second by Justice Lemming. Are there any public comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Ordinances on the consent agenda are approved. Ms. Myra, Counselor Lester has informed me that we need to call roll on this, please. This roll is on passage of the consent agenda.
Lisa Ecke? Charles Dean? Shonda Washington? Beth Koger? Robert Dennis? Suki Hires? Evelyn Rios Stafford? Willie Lemming? Gary Ricker? Butch Pond? David Wilson? Sean Simons? Kyle Lines?
Okay, thank you. Sorry for your patience. Next item on the agenda is our added item, item number 14, which is the discussion item on the Parker Branch Bridge. Justice Koger,
Could we please take just a 5-minute break?
without objection, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
Thank you. They took all the snacks away. I know. Yeah, and I tried not to, but you know. I did. I have my mouth covered actually. I go to bed at 8.
You ever see somebody?
Oh yeah, my husband. Oh no.
I didn't see you, but I was sure that. Didn't understand why we didn't go ahead for a third and final reading. I was trying not to be the one to do that because the second one didn't. I thought it said up there. I looked at this four one. The majority had it. I said it passed, it said it passed.
Teachers change.
What are you doing? For real? I'm out of here and like, get off my phone. Okay, that's what we're worried about?
I don't write down.
And I think the fact that they don't is not helping the food away.
So you have, I see a lot of things. You have Coleman out, you have Francine. So you're
isn't, because I would have all of the chocolate,
Right,
all
right.
of the chips.
More of those cookies.
Mm-hmm.
We changed your life. I worked in state highway department. They educated us. Probably was a lot.
Okay, I'd like to get this.
If we talk about change, I've seen a lot of change. They wasn't gonna bypass here. I was working on the highway department. I done the archaeologist digs. Once that bypass is built, I'm talking about change. And out there where they're living, back before Larry Walker bought that place, it was totally different. They wasn't meeting here at all. You go through that exhibit over there today?
Okay, I hate to keep whipping and riding, but I think we've had a long evening. We're gonna have a longer evening. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna tee this up. We have item number 14, new item number 14, which is a discussion on the Parker Branch Wyola Bridge. I'm gonna invite Chief of Staff Johnson up here. Hopefully between the two of us, we can get your questions answered, and I'm gonna start out with a little bit of synopsis and background on this. When we came into office, Chief Johnson and I, one of the primary things we wanted to do is we wanted to tour the county with the road department and address concerns, big projects they have, and potential issues they have. We spent a whole day with them in early February going around the county, and actually in that whole day we only got about half the county covered. We've got a very large county and we've got a lot going on as a road department. Towards that end of that day, we saw a project that brought a high level of concern to both Chief Johnson and I. And what this was a bridge structure that had been constructed at their intersection of Parker Branch and Wyola Roads down in the southern part of the county, just south, well, as the crow flies, it's probably directly east of the Brentwood rest area down there, down in that part of the county. So the reason it gave us pause is we ended up with a structure that was it was only the bridge structure and what they call the wing walls, which are the walls where the water runs underneath, right? The wing walls that come off that. This structure was 2 stories high in the air. with no roads or approaches to it. And so we immediately started trying to follow up on this and ask questions of the road department of what was the conception of this particular issue, and where we were planning to move and where we move from here. So all that to be said, I'm going to lay this out. We don't have a lot of the answers. A lot of the individuals who are involved in this, actually most all of the individuals who are involved in this are no longer with the county. So we'll answer everything that we can. Some of these questions we don't have answers to, and we can still work on now. So we'll start there. First of all, I can't see I sent Ms. Meyer the photos up there. There should be one called Bridge Original or something like that. If you can pop that open. Should be one more that's not so close up. Let's see if we can find that one. That was the original structure at Parker Branch and Wyola Road as it existed probably 3 to 4 years ago. It was a mostly low water crossing. As you can see, water topped it most of the way. Those two holes in that structure are 24-inch galvanized culverts that are cemented into a cement structure. Now, from what we've been able to piece together is this came to the county's attention because regularly this would overflow that bridge, but more concerning, the structure was made for the water to top it. That was not the issue. From our understanding about some people who have some legacy in our road department, what the issue was on each of the approaches on each side, the water would wash around the bridge and wash out the gravel approaches. So anytime they got any sizable rain whatsoever, the road department was having to go back out there and re-pour gravel and reconstruct the approaches. Ms. Meyer, I think you opened it up, but there's a little bit of the zoomed in version of what's essentially that same picture. Thank you. I mean, that's just, you can see the water topping that structure there. That's just a close-up of what we were just looking at. If you'll go back to that folder too, Ms. Myra, there is a timeline summary, I believe. Yeah, I don't know if you can zoom in on that. Okay. This is a working document that me and Chief Johnson have been working with, and this just lays out some landmarks in time, if you will, for this particular project. One of the things I think causes a lot of confusion here is, from what we can tell, at some point the road department decided they wanted to go out there and do something with this particular intersection. This is in a very remote part of the county. While Parker Branch Road at this position runs north and south, and Wyola Road runs what would be east of this bridge. This is a T intersection, if you will, with London Creek is what this body of water is transects Wyola Road before it meets Parker Branch. I hope I'm making a little bit of, anyways. What we can tell is the county started pursuing grant opportunities to replace that structure. And you can kind of see this timeline. I'll run through it. Chief Johnson, you feel free to jump in if you ever want to add any narration to this. We can see activity through invoices and payments. But essentially, the county pursued 2 Department of Emergency Management grants that would reimburse the county 50% of the costs of replacing this structure. They originally got approved for 1 grant. You can see back in 2018, October 20th, 2018, there was some drafting paid to a Mr. Ian McClure, is it Clear or Clune? I can't read it. Ian McClune. We don't have any work product for that. We have no idea what that was. We can only just see the payment was made. All that to say, these grants had a 1-year time frame, a 1-year time frame that you could construct this bridge and you would get reimbursed for 50% of the costs. That first grant we were awarded, from what we can tell, we never did any work. We blew right through the grant deadline. We were never even close to fulfilling the stipulations of the grant. Okay? So then you move through a time, there is a, you can see in June of 2019, we got a notice of non-completion. We never received any grant funds ever for this particular bridge structure. There's a big point in time here, there's a big landmark here, and that is June 18th of 2019. The county purchased some bridge beams from Skurlock Industries. If you're not familiar, that's a company that does some a lot of prefabrication of concrete. We even get some concrete culverts and stuff from them. These bridge beams were basically a misprint for a bridge that was scheduled to go in at Rogers. They had no connection to the county whatsoever. There was some issue with them. I don't know what. Somehow, it was decided in our road department that we should purchase those bridge beams. From what we can tell, those bridge beams were purchased with no immediate project in mind. Okay? From what we can tell, once again, from just talking to our legacy road department employees, those bridge beams were purchased. There's probably about 10 or 12 of them. They were brought to our road department yard, placed in that yard. Chief Johnson, I'm not sure if you remember, did we ever see a cost of those bridge beams?
It was $10,000, but let me see if I can find that invoice quickly.
So we'll move on. If we'll scroll down a little bit there, Ms. Myra. So in the midst of all this, we pursue what is essentially a reiteration of the same grant, another grant with the Arkansas Department of Emergency Management. We apply for this grant. We requested $250,000 in that grant. Later, as you can see, in November of 20th of 2019, we updated that grant proposal and requested $98,856.87. We believe that was the 50% reimbursable amount. There was a total grant application for approximately $197,000. So the county, in a perfect world, was always going to be on the hook for 50% of the bridge costs if we were awarded this grant. Okay. And you guys feel free to raise your hand or stop me if you think I can help you with something. We do not have what we consider the full grant application for that second grant. We don't see any plans of what that bridge looked like. I don't even know, to be honest with you, if it was required that you submit plans with the grant application for that. We don't have any schematics of what they thought that would look like. But anyways, we'll continue to move on. Somewhere in the midst of this, we see the first, on October 22nd, 2020, work order number 2 is a contract with MCE Engineering for bridge design. And that is the contract where we first see these bridge beams being used in the Parker Branch Bridge Project. Okay? That contract was signed by a gentleman named Charles Ward, who was formerly the road superintendent for Washington County during that time. We find that problematic. The county judge is the only official in the county that can contract the county to anything and bind the county through contracts. Whatever, water under the bridge. You can now see there's some subsequent payments for that bridge work. And then down here you can see where a lot of the road leadership turns over in the first quarter of 2021. You can see that Carl Gales was the chief of staff at the time. He departed the county. Travis Reed was in a position called a field superintendent. He departs the county. And of course, Charles Ward was in the road superintendent position. He departs the county. So we have the drafts of these engineering schematics, correct, during this time. And then we start putting the bridge out for bid to construct the bridge using these bridge beams. And you can see that I want to show you down the very bottom there. In August of 2021, we awarded that contract, that construction contract to Crossland. But it's very important to look at the line item right above that. And April 30th of 2021 was the second deadline for the second grant to have the bridge completed. We were never, ever close to completing that grant. And so that's one thing I want to make very clear to the public and you as justices. There seems to be a lot of confusion about that, a lot of rumor about we received grant funding. We never received grant funding. We never completed the stipulations of the grants. We never received $1 for it. We were awarded 2 grants, never completed the stipulations of the grants. Okay? And so we're getting now close to where we are today. The bridge was constructed. It was, as you can see, the contractor was awarded in August of 2021. We make payments. They work through it. The bridge was essentially completed, inspected, and signed off on in October of 2022. And then essentially sat for 4 months until Chief Johnson and I investigated it in the first week of February. It was brought to our attention by the road department. They knew this was an issue. They knew this was going to be an issue. Ms. Meyer, I don't know if the pictures ever came through on the email. If you can, try to pull some of those up for us, will you? This is what the structure looked like when me and Chief Johnson observed it in February. That would have been the west facing of the bridge. You can see the top part of that was the top deck of the bridge. So what we received for $500,000 was this structure. Now, one thing I'll bring your attention to, I don't think I got a good picture of it, and I apologize about that. The top deck of this this bridge is still concrete. We would have had to have surfaced it. Some of this I'm learning about bridge construction during this time, so I want to point some things out that might be of interest to you. Do you see those black lines running vertically? Those are sealant lines, but what they're sealing are the joints of the bridge beams. So you can see there's multiple bridge beams, and essentially their letter U's flipped on top of itself, right? That was the bridge beam. It's letter C or U, whatever. So I'm just trying to put this in layman's terms. I don't know if you can pull up any other ones, Ms. Meyer, out of that email. Or yeah, was it just one? There's a pretty good one. That's what it would essentially be down if you're in the creek bed. So I'm not sure when the timeline was, but of course you can assume that structure that we looked at that was initially out at Parker Branch was torn up at some point by the road department in preparation for this work. And what I'm standing on there, I probably don't have a good picture of that either, and I'm sorry. I'm standing on what is essentially a temporary road for the residents that need to go and traverse Wyola. That's a good road. I mean, that's a good picture. That's looking back west. Parker Branch would run behind the other end of that structure over there, and you can see that. Okay. Okay. So. Yeah, absolutely. Cue your mic up for you, Justice Fleming.
All along, we knew that bridge was going to be that high. It was engineer McClellan. In the drawing, it says it's going to be 12 foot high. And the reason that's got to be 12 foot high is because the bridge deck is 2 foot above the water level. The water level is 1 foot above any flood stage that ever happened out there. And that's why that bridge structure is that tall. It's gotta be that tall to carry the water. And it's in the drawings, McClellan Engineer drawed, it's in the drawings that Crossland Heavy contracted for $386,000. That contract was signed, it's got Jeff Crowder's name all over it.
No,
Well, I
I
got
push
it at
back
home.
against
I'll
that.
bring it to
No,
you.
sir.
I'll bring it to you.
I would like to see that.
I'll bring it to you.
I would also like to see this flood study that you're talking about, because
Well-
you keep referencing that, and
Well,
I've never
that's-
seen it.
I am ready for that, and I've been talking with them at Little Rock, and I'm trying to find it, and I will find it.
Well, that's what we need to operate on, Justice Lemming, is
And-
facts.
And I got another fact here.
And that's why I've wanted to bring this up and
I've
have
got
this
another
discussion
fact
open.
here that I got from this lady at Little Rock. Her name is Brenda Wilson, and she's a state hazard mitigation grants coordinator, Arkansas Department of Environmental Management. And I can tell you a lot more about that. I finally got a hold of Jeff Crowder, assistant road superintendent at Washington County. I think he was dodging my phone calls. Anyway, he said that they have awarded the county and that they were not going to start till September. His progress reports showed 50% completed of the month of April. That the bridge, he had all this 50% completed.
Justice Lemming, I'm gonna stop you, because I want all the other justices, and this is something I have to adhere myself to also. We represent 600 county employees. And when we talk about those employees, we have to talk about fact.
Well, it is fact.
I'm not
It's
talking
black and
about
white,
some lady, I'm sure she's a very nice lady, and I'm sure she's very knowledgeable. But until I see the documents, I have to operate on fact.
That's what I'm operating.
And the other thing you keep talking about this flood study. I don't know if it exists, but if it does, that does not mean that the bridge had to be built to withstand that. If we built every bridge in Washington County to that standard, or if we were committed to that, it would be a whole different story into this county. So, Ms. Meyer, with that, will you go back into that folder? There should be a cost summary or something to that effect. Justice Coger? Sorry, just a second.
The rest of that email.
I'd like to have some emails too.
Yeah.
These four right here.
I mean,
Talk to you after court.
Can you zoom in on that? So this is a cost summary that we put together, and this is based on what we made our decisions on when we were evaluating what we do with this bridge.
can't see it.
So, as you can see, item number one is the bridge as it was planned, planned as being the structure that was out there at the time. The county had $494,935 invested in that structure, and that's the one we've seen pictures of at this time, okay? Internal estimations told us it was gonna cost us over $1 million to finish that bridge, and that's what that $1,096,000 amount represents. And so that would have put a total cost estimate for that bridge at $1.6 million. You can, a little bit, right?
Sorry.
Okay. I would like to, I know I'm causing you to jump around, Ms. Meyer. Don't get in a rush if you don't want to. There should be some pictures in that folder about New Bridge or yeah, that's one, but keep digging. Get me one that doesn't say Monday on it. This is a picture of the bridge structure that's out there now. So we we improved the road, if you will. We've raised it up. Those are 48-inch cement culverts. You can see we've upgraded that with 4 of them. And then keep pulling up those other pictures, Miss Myra. I know there was a lot of news and a lot of innuendo that bridge had washed away this past weekend with a lot of the rain we'd had. That is the road surface looking up Wyola Road now. This was on Monday morning when we went out to inspect this bridge on Monday morning. Keep picking up some other ones if you can. That's as you can see, some debris is washed up against those culverts, but the road surface and the structure of the bridge is still there Monday morning. So, anytime we have a large rain like we did last weekend or last week into last weekend, we're concerned about any of our bridges around this county. We have an unfortunate luck of losing some of them every year. So go back to that cost summary, Ms. Meyer, and we're going to scroll on down. Item number 2 is what we, if you scroll up just a little bit, that was our remediation plan. So what we put in there is the sunk cost of the bridge, which is the same figure that was up above. We have that much money in this project right now. Our remediation of the bridge structure estimate was $104,000, and the dirt work to bring the new structure and the approaches up was $65,967, which would have put the total cost, assuming we are still counting the bridge investment that we already made, at $665,000. That's the reality I was faced with. Do we continue a bad project? Also, I would point out, I think the design of that project, that concrete structure that was constructed, was not designed for that area. Keep in mind, those are bridge beams that were never designed for that area. They had an odd angle to them that we were worried about the safety of Wyola dumping off onto Parker Branch. It made the road come in at a weird angle, right? And so if you were turning back north, it was an odd transverse, if you will, to get back up there. It had an angle to it. It was not perpendicular. Okay. Councilor Lester has another picture he might have sent Ms. Meyer. He said maybe you could get an idea of the angle there. So what I know, there's lots of questions you guys have, because I have some of the same questions. What is the total cost to this to the taxpayers? We assume, or we estimate, not assume, we estimate there is a total loss to the taxpayers of $400,000. And it's $400,000 of that $494,935. The way we are coming at that number is we were able to save the footings. Ms. Meyer, I don't know if you can pull up that first picture of the new structure. We got you jumping all around now, and I know, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead with that, the email, if you can, if you got Brian's email. Oh.
I was standing on my head when I was doing that. I'm sorry.
Well, we're gonna have to all get on our heads here. No. No. To save it and then. Sorry. It's not upside down on my picture. Give it a name real quick. You're gonna have to name it.
Justice Pond?
I had a question that while they're getting that straightened out, you may be able to answer. And what was it you had it estimated to complete that project, that bridge, that the existing one was gonna be somewhere in the $1 million range? Was that gonna be the cost, if you had it contracted out, or was that cost? if the
That's a
county-
cost of contracted or internal. Now, one of the philosophies that Chief Johnson and I have worked on is before, the county didn't like to estimate labor within their project costs, but we have got them to estimate labor inside their costs now because we think that's the only proper way to do that.
I see. Okay.
So, and the major cost of that is, this is a good picture for two reasons. When you have the bridge deck that high, you have to build the approaches to the road up, and that was gonna involve trucking in a lot of dirt. Over the span of a half a mile or more to get the grade correct. I mean, you can't just come out to a two-story bridge and drop off, just, you understand traffic wouldn't handle that. You can also see in this picture, that's a north and south Parker Branch Road there. You see how I don't know if you can get a good perspective of it, but the bridge is angled. It's not coming in at what would exactly be a T. It's coming in at a 45 or whatever you want to call it. And so we did not like that bridge design anyways, because if you were coming off Wyola and you wanted to go north on Parker Branch, we didn't know how you were going to make that turn.
Well, I was looking at it being more like a 12-foot tall.
Yeah.
12 foot is a little bit under 2 stories, but okay. Thank you.
So that was the major cost of completing this bridge, was the workup of the approaches on each side. It would have dramatically changed that landscape out in that part of the county. I mean, it would have been a huge undertaking to bring in, a mammoth undertaking to bring in that much dirt. Justice Rio Stafford?
Thank you. I looked at the dates of my photos. It was May 30th, 2022. It was a Sunday. And my husband and I happened to be out on a Sunday drive, and we came across this completely by accident. I had no idea about it at all, but I thought it looked so out of place, and I thought it was so weird, and at such a weird angle, like you're talking about, that I stopped and I was like, let's take some photos of this, because this just seems so unusual. And I meant to ask Judge Wood about it, and other stuff happened, and I never did. And then the next thing I found out about it was when we were tearing it down.
Yeah.
But I had some constituents just ask some, and I emailed you and Chief Johnson these questions, had some members of the public reach out with just some questions, especially one guy works in the construction business. And he wanted to know about, and I apologize because I'm not totally well-versed in all this stuff with performance bonds and insurance and stuff like that. But he wanted to know, like, were there any performance bonds?
Yes.
With this to cover the cost?
Well, not to cover.
Not.
Crosslink Construction bid to build the structure in that picture. They provided a performance bond to the county. They built the structure they contracted to build. So the bond is there to protect.
The bonds if they don't do
The
what?
protect is if they don't build
Okay, all
what
right.
they tell us to build.
Got it, okay, all right. And I guess the other question was about whether there was the engineering firm, they did it to specs, everything was cool with that, and?
Say, excuse me, I'm messing with this so I can hear and talk
That's
at
okay.
the same time.
The engineering firm, with the specs that the engineering firm did, they did what we asked them to do.
They
and-
designed
yeah.
the bridge we told them to design.
Okay, so all the problems kind of stemmed from in-house is what everything seems to be pointing toward.
That's the only thing I can assume.
Okay, all right. And then, J.P. Lemming isn't the only one who's seen, I guess these, we do still have some folks that are still, I guess they're still working here. The assistant road superintendent, back in November 2020, there's a document with his signature on it that's a contract for the grant. And then in 2021, reports to the state about this bridge with his signature on it, so.
I have
can
not
he answer
seen, yeah,
questions?
I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have not seen the document where, any of the documents that you guys are talking about where he's reporting a bridge status.
Okay.
Now, the documents I've
I'll email it to you because it got posted on Facebook.
Yeah, I'd like to see it, please. I don't spend much time on Facebook anymore for a variety of reasons.
I understand.
Now, what we've been told, and what I can only assume is true until it's proven to me not, the bridge that, the idea, the concept of the bridge that we applied for the second grant is not that structure. If you remember, we asked for $97,000 of reimbursement. That was not the bridge that we had in mind when we applied for the grant. What we are told from our road department staff is what they had in mind, the concept when they applied for the second grant, is what is there now, what we have replaced it with. And that would much more align with the dollar values that were on that grant application.
Okay.
And so, listen, here's the bottom line of all this. I hold our people, and Chief Johnson holds all of our people to a very high standard. And that but to this point, we have to rely and trust on what we're being told. We don't have any documents to the differ. The bottom line of this is this should have never happened. This bridge should have never been down there. The road department should have never undertaken this venture. And what I've told the road department is we're making lemonade. Now, one thing I want to finish up with this. If you look up that's the bridge approach there that she has the hand on, and then the wing walls down there off to the side. What we did to remediate that is we went up about 2 feet and we scored that concrete all the way across there. Right where see like her hand's moving across there, we scored that all the way across there. Ms. Meyer, I don't know if you could pull up the new bridge structure. At one time I had you up there. I said that it's the one without Monday in it. If you can pull that picture up again. Yep, that looks like the. Ooh. Final, yeah. I hope this shows what I'm wanting to talk about. You see right, that's it. Yep, go back to that one. You see that straight gray piece right there with the rocks beside it? Off to the left of those culverts? No, down. That is that wing wall we scored. And so we scored it, and that's why I'm saying we were able to salvage the footings of the bridge to give this new structure here support and strength. Justice Dean?
Yeah, I was just wanting to know, do you have a copy of the original contract or anything that was signed for them to proceed with this?
To build the structure that was there? Yes, we have copies of that. We have copies of that in the engineering report.
And who signed it and okayed it?
The contract to build the structure was signed by Judge Wood.
By Judge Wood?
Mm-hmm. The contract for the engineering was back when I was saying Charles Ward signed that contract for work order number 2.
Okay.
Justice Dennis?
Thank you, Judge. Just because I was there when they delivered the round tiles, I thought it was supposed to have been square tiles, which would have been bigger and allowed the water to go through more. What happened on that?
To my knowledge, we never had a plan for our remediation to be square tiles. Once again, because we would have fallen into the same issue, the square tiles are taller, and it would have required the approaches to be. We would have gotten in, not to the same extent, of course, but to the same issue of having to build up the road surface, the approaches to get there.
Okay, I just had heard that it was supposed to have been square.
So, I don't know.
Made a difference on how much water could go through.
Right, yeah. So.
Just curious.
So to sum this up, I'm not trying to cut you. Did I get your? Okay.
I'm not cut off.
Okay.
Thank you.
we believe we have put a bridge structure out there that's appropriate for this area and matches this area in terms of the investment the county wants to make out there. You have to understand, or I hope we all understand, and it's been dawned on me before now, more now than ever. County roads is a huge problem of finite resources and infinite needs. We would have never, if we were being conscious of taxpayer dollars, ever considered investing a $1.6 million bridge in this area of the county. And one of the main things I want you to understand is if you go up Wyola, if you cross this bridge and went back up there where you can see that little excavator, there's 3 more low water crossings on that road as you traverse around that mountain. So we have a structure there that we believe is very responsible. We believe it's very safe. Now, as you've probably seen some pictures, in heavy rains, the water will top this structure. But we have tried to put the work and the planning into it to make sure that that structure's still there. And like any other bridge now, we will maintain it and put the full faith of the county behind it.
So it survived this last big rain?
It absolutely did. Some of those pictures that Ms. Meyer brought up, I have them, some of them coated Monday top. That is the bridge after the water receded with no further attention to it. So you can see some limbs washed up against that culverts there, but as far as the road surface, it was passable last weekend after the water receded from it. There's a picture, it should say top or something like that, top Monday. That was the road surface. You can see there's a stick on top of it that the road department didn't move before they took the picture. That's the road surface. So listen, here's the way I want to sum this up, and of course I still want to have discussion. I want you guys to answer or ask any questions. On behalf of the county, I apologize this ever happened. Of course, I inherited the problem, but as a taxpayer, I'm as concerned about this as anybody. And who I really want, there's 2 particular groups I really want to apologize to. The citizens out there who had to deal with this for several years while the county was out there doing these various projects were somewhat displaced by this temporary road they had to cross to get across this creek around this bridge structure while I was there. I've, as much negative comments as we've heard probably more comments of neighbors saying, we're just glad it's back. You guys should have never been out here. We were fine with what we had. So they're just glad to have something that's very operable and is an improvement. I want everybody to remember that. So whatever your opinions are of the bridge structure that was created and whether or not we should have completed it, this is an improvement over what they had and will suit them much better, those neighbors out there. The second group I really want to apologize to is the road department and the men and women in the road department. We had some very poor leadership in the road department is what we've convinced ourselves of. And this bridge structure hung as a dark cloud over those men and women for many, many years. And I can imagine, and after talking to them, I can only think, you go to work every day and you work hard and you come home and people are laughing about that bridge out there in Wyola and Parker Branch. And that's the major representation you have for your efforts every day. And so, listen, you can disagree with me about the facts and about the decision that I made, and I want you all to be clear about this too. I consulted with our road leadership. I consulted with Chief Johnson. At the end of the day, that decision lies with me, and I replaced it with this structure. And I'm proud that we did it, and I'm proud that we did it for our road department. And I think we are hopefully correcting a lot of these issues and these problems that came up in our road department during that time. And we're going to continue to evaluate this issue. We're going to continue to ask questions. I invite these documents that you guys have, and we're going to continue to hold people accountable. Justice Dennis?
I'm going to go out a little bit on a limb, and I'm just going to say it as the way I feel, and I know we're not supposed to go on feelings, but I also don't want to quote anybody. A lot of people at the road department don't feel like that they can tell things. Don't quote me, they said. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, you're a whistleblower if you talk to me. And I've done that in the past, and not necessarily this one, this situation. But we've had a bad bridge before, remember, in Prairie Grove. I know Butch remembers it, and so does Hecky, but, had to tear that one down. And there was a lot of secrecy over that where the employees would not talk. I'm just telling you, I talked to them and asked them, and they'd say, man, we just cannot, we're not allowed to say anything to you. And they knew I was a JP. So I hope that is gone too with some of the changes, but I don't want to see a whistleblower penalized for telling the truth about what's going on or what's not going on. And I think we've got to put that out so that the employees know that we can be trusted and that we can hear things or be told things. I just think that's real important to say. Thank you.
I could not agree with you more. It's a culture that I think we've experienced has existed in the road department. Chief Johnson and our road leadership have worked very hard to combat and change that culture. And so we feel like some of the people who brought this to our attention when we went on that road tour in February, maybe that was the first time they'd had the opportunity to come forward with something like this. And so, yes, now, what I'll say is that takes time. We're building trust. And so it's not perfect. Right now, you might hear some feedback like that right now, but Chief Johnson's working on it. I'm working on it. Our road leadership's working on it. What I'm not going to get into any details, but what I've been asked to do is conduct a witch hunt and hold somebody accountable. And if I find somebody that is accountable to this, I will hold them accountable. But I have to do that based on facts. Justice Dennis?
Thank you again. I'm talking before
Yep.
this.
Great.
My example is for before this. But at the same time, when I made a surprise visit down there in the last administration, I was told by very many that your surprise visit was not appreciated and that we're not to talk to you.
Yeah.
And that you weren't judge, you were JP just like myself. And I hate to hear that. And I sure don't want to hear it again on these type situations either.
Yeah.
So I like to put myself out there where they say, okay, you can talk to him and he won't quote us. But when I hear things, then it's like, well, what do I do with it? So, and like you said, you got to deal on facts, not feelings. But anyway, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate this. We've invited people in to talk to us. We've never had anybody come in the office, but I felt like it was finally important to address some of this head on. Justice Coger?
Yes, thank you, Judge. I think I heard someone say that we spent $10,000 for something. How did we spend $10,000? How did anyone in the county just spend $10,000 like that without coming through something? I don't understand that. And also, for some of us seem to have other information that some of us don't have of y'all. I would like to, to see whatever that is too. I'd like some emails or whatever. And so I guess it comes down to, like you said, water under the bridge. But what do we do now? What controls do we have in place, or should we have in place, to make sure that we don't have something like this happen again? Where someone who's not authorized to sign a contract signs a contract, and back to my $10,000, how did someone spend $10,000 without anyone knowing it?
Chief Johnson?
Well, first of all, it was $10,975 we had to pay tax on too.
Okay.
My suspicion is it was purchased and charged to an approved budget within the road department budget.
Okay, and what about controls going forward?
Well, first of all, every day I walk in there and I tell them, we're going to do the ordinary exceptionally well. We're gonna grade roads, we're gonna pave roads, and we're gonna chip seal roads. Or do we do one small bridge project at a time? We're not gonna get into the construction business.
Does
If
the
we're
coun-
gonna build bridges, we're gonna bid the bridges.
Now, does the county have an engineer?
No.
No, okay. Okay, thank you.
Justice Ricker?
Just out of curiosity, are the county bridges inspected by the state?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Justice Leming?
Don't know where to start. And I know you did inherit the problem, both of you did. And you ought to feel like I felt we was let down by our leaders while we sat on this court, just like he just mentioned. The fact is that $10,000 was slid through. There's a lot of things happened on our watch. It was our watch. It was our approvals that approved all this stuff. You know, we sat here and we approved $150,000. We wrote an ordinance to say that we would match the money for the $150,000 grant, which wasn't 150, it's 96,000 some change. But we never had nobody to follow up. No, I guarantee Joseph Woods probably didn't know they decided that the grants department decided that they wasn't going to give them the money because of basically lack of interest. And we didn't know it. Did you know it on the court when you was on the court? No, we wasn't never told any of that information. And it's sad that we're sitting around this horseshoe and we're just throwing out money and we don't never hear the results. This bridge should have never, ever took off the ground. Shouldn't have never, ever $1 spent on it. If the grant didn't happen, we didn't get grants, we shouldn't have spent $1. And the bridge decks that was bought, was they destroyed or are they still at the road department? Are they on your asset list?
What are you talking about, the bridge deck?
Bridge decks.
The bridge beams
The bridge
that were
beams.
used to construct that?
Yes.
We tore them down.
So did you put them on your destruction list and get rid of them?
Well,
They're an asset to this county.
to me, they're a construction input.
They're
I'm
an
not sure of the
asset.
law.
You bought
that-
them prior to this bridge. They sat down to the road department, just like these culverts that you took from the road department, put down. That's an asset.
No,
We
did-
paid for them assets.
If you're asking me if they're on a disposal report, they're not on a disposal report.
Well, I think they should have been, personally, because, I mean, you can't just go down there and get your Tahoe and destroy it. I mean, it's an asset.
Yeah, and I'm
Your bridge decks are an asset.
and I'm telling you, I'm not sure of the law on that. But
Well, I know
they've been
you-
disposed of. I mean, there's pictures of that.
But there was a lot of waste here. And I know you're wanting to hammer the previous administration. Yeah, the previous administration had their hands in it. But the administration you have now had their hands in it. The same ones.
No.
Yes.
I'm not going to say that, Justice Lemon.
You can say what you want
You're
to.
not. That's it. Oh, you can say what you want to, but that's your opinion.
That is
and
my
what
opinion.
I'm telling
and
each one
I got
of you,
documents. I got paperwork.
and
to
what I'm telling
explain
each one of
everything
you
that I said.
around this horseshoe is, if there's somebody to be held accountable, we'll hold them accountable. But the rumor and innuendo doesn't help, and it certainly doesn't help morale with our people.
Everything I'm telling you, I got documentation to show you that I
Well,
can prove to you.
That's why
And you
I've
said to
invited
come
you
and see
several
you.
times to my office to discuss
You have
this.
never called me and said, I'll have a window from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, come in. I called you the other day and you said, well, I didn't call you back because I was in a meeting. I'm going to come to this courthouse, sit for 3 hours and wait on you to come tell me
All
come
of
in?
you around this horseshoe have an open invitation to my office anytime you want to. That being said, I'm not going to come track you down.
I don't want you to track me. Just text me and say,
What
hey,
I
come
what
up
I want
today.
you to be is faithful to your work on this court. And if we have issues,
I
let's
am.
come talk about them and let's
I don't
share the
wanna waste money.
information. I don't want to waste money either, Justice
I don't want to
Leming.
waste money. I
We
don't
can
wanna waste no
completely
more.
we can completely agree on everything you're saying,
Yeah.
with the exception of Chief Johnson and I have not found the accountability that you are insinuating is there. If you have the documents,
I was trying to read it to you and you
insinuate
shut
there,
me up.
Well, I'd like to see the document.
Well, here's my phone. Just,
Email it to me.
I can do that right now.
Justice Rio Stafford?
Thank you, Judge. Okay, so I guess I'm a little confused now about the bridge pieces that we bought from Rogers, and some of them got used for this, or all of them got used for?
All of them got
All of
used
them
for
did.
that.
Okay, so we don't have other pieces sitting around still in the, some yard somewhere?
No.
Okay, all right. That part I didn't quite understand.
Correct.
But I wanted to thank you and Chief Johnson for sharing the information that you've shared and bringing this forward for us to have this discussion. And, but I have to ask the question now, our former chief of staff, when was our former chief of staff aware of any of this? Mr. Lester?
When was I aware? The first time I became aware of this bridge, we got a phone call from a gentleman that lives on down past this bridge on a different road that cuts off, and he was upset about some culverts that were clogged up, had gotten clogged up. Actually, he was upset with the grader operator for coming through and cleaning the ditch. And so I went out because he had threatened to shoot one of our grader operators, and so I went out and met one of Jay's officers out there along with the road superintendent, and actually drove past this and looked at it, and when I got to where I was, basically said, what the heck is that thing back there?
Well, that was my reaction when I saw it
Right.
last year.
And that's when I found out about, now, I review a lot of contracts and I see a lot of stuff, as RFQs I look at, the wording. I don't often know what those RFQs are for, but I knew Parker Branch Road Bridge. I knew that there was some sort of something that had been going on for years with Parker Branch Road. I didn't even know where Parker Branch Road was until I went down here. There's a lot of names of roads in the county. I can tell you the name, but I can't tell you where in the county they are. But I did, about 2 weeks prior to me taking that picture that I showed that Miss Myra put up, and that was in April of 2022. So sometime.
That was the month before I saw
Right
it.
before you went down there. A little bit before that is the first time I saw that bridge, and then had to ask after we were done, so we need to stop back up there because I don't know what that is. And that's when I learned what it was. At that point, it was already kind of finished for the most part. And you're right, the way it intersected, it did not line up with Wyola Road. I don't know how we were supposed to turn back and then turn back around to go up that hill. It was coming in at a weird, everything was a red flag to me. And then nothing happened on it after that at all until Judge Deakins went out and Chief Johnson, and they decided that, the best course of action would just be to tear it down. We spent no other money on that. What had been done was done.
Okay, thank you.
Justice Fleming?
He just said you spent no more money on it. Well, you rented a $28,000 track hoe to tear it down, and you had it for a week or two or three, and then you had trucks work overtime. So there's quite a bit of money that was spent to tear it down. And why was the hurry to get it down that quick? Why was the got to do it today? Why we got to bring people in on Friday? Is that just something that let's do it now, get her done now?
The decision was not made quickly. We saw the bridge initially in February. And I think we did the remediation work in the first couple weeks of April. Now, we wanted to get it done we were in a hurry to get it done after we started the project because we are up against chip seal season, and we wanted to have our men and women ready for chip sealing as quickly as possible. Because that's the other huge issue of all this stuff is not only is it bad that we've wasted money and it's bad that we're out there, there's a huge opportunity cost of having our men and women out there fixing something when we have plenty of maintenance that we need to be doing all around the county that we're not getting done while we're doing situations like that. Justice Fleming?
Throw this out there. You said you're not going to waste money. Whenever you chip seal and you use wet chips and the road's wet, it will not stay. And you was doing that just 3 days ago.
Justice Fleming, I don't know what you want from me. I'm
not just telling you.
I know that
you don't want to waste money. I can go
made it-
show you some roads that they chip seal with wet chip seals. Go down Illinois Chapel. Go out here.
I
Prairie Grove and
understand.
Go around.
I understand.
Come on.
You've made it very apparent that you were disenchanted with the road department, Mr. Fleming, Justice Fleming, and I understand that. And I'm not.
The whole county is not just me.
But Mr. Fleming, Justice Fleming, I have to make decisions on fact, which is different than what you operate off of. Justice Coger?
Thank you, Judge. I'm going to go back to something you said a few minutes ago about your door is always open to all of us. Does that include me? Because you told me I'd have to communicate with you by email.
Things change when you take a lawsuit up with me. Then the lawyers get involved, and we're under the advice of legal counsel at that particular time. So, yes, we've complicated that situation quite a bit, Justice Coger. Do we have any other discussion about the bridge issue? Okay, with that, we're going to move on. We actually have one more item remaining on our agenda, and that's item added number 15, which is item number 23-0-080. Counselor, will you read this by title only?
This is an emergency ordinance amending ordinance 2023-3.
This is our ordinance which added Article 4, which is any committee meeting by the virtue of this ordinance occurs on a day in which Washington County Courthouse is closed shall automatically and without need for an ordinance be moved to the next subsequent day and the Washington County Courthouse is open to commence at the same time as originally scheduled. Justice Lyons,
Make a motion, we pass this ordinance.
this is on the first reading. I believe we'll need a motion.
A motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's emergency ordinance, so.
Thank you.
We have a motion to pass by Justice Lyons, second by Justice Hires. Any further discussion? Justice Coger?
Yes, thank you, Judge. My question goes to Attorney Lester. Attorney Lester, this is the ordinance that I emailed you about, asking about if it needed to refer to the Robert's Rules of Order. And I never heard back, or at least I haven't heard back as of this morning. I don't know. So could you address that, please? Remember, I quoted a statute that said we had to, that should be done at the first meeting.
Yes, and I emailed you back.
And what was, I haven't seen it.
The Quorum Court adopted Robert's Rules in its most recent edition. And until such time as an ordinance is passed that undoes that, that will remain in effect. That has nothing to do with this ordinance because this is all set by state law and Robert's Rules will not control over state law. State law takes precedent, but everything that state law doesn't dictate, Roberts is controlling, and that was passed by ordinance a few years ago. It was updated for Roberts' most recent edition because Robert's Rules in their 11th edition had come out, which had a few changes.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure on that. Thank you.
Justice Rio Stafford?
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to say I'm glad we're doing this. I think the last time that we had to change one of the meeting dates, I was wondering if we were going to have to amend this ordinance over and over again every time we had to change one. So I think this is a good solution.
Yeah, that was a little bit different because that was when we amended a meeting because election commission. So that will require a separate ordinance. This only happens as it relates to days that the courthouse is closed so that we don't have to keep coming back on those.
Any further discussion on this ordinance? Any public comments on the ordinance? Ms. Meyer, will you please call a roll?
You won't have the voting system except the roll call. So Charles Dean, Chandra Washington, Beth Coger, Robert Dennis, Suki Hires, Evelyn Rio Stafford, Willie Lemming, Gary Ricker, Butch Pond, David Wilson, Kyle Lines.
That item passes. The committee reports are in your packet, and with that, we're going to be adjourned.